I know, the blonde replied, even if he had believed it was, before jumping worlds. Before his whole life had changed forever. Kakashi looked at the rock. Now, enough talking. We have a jutsu to make, or else Zabuza is going to think I was just screwing with him, which I was. The puppet master, Sasori. Sasori knew he wasn't especially the kindest, nicest person around. Having been born and grown up in Sunagakure during the eras of war, Sasori had been recruited early in the ninja corps and became genin at 7. He was promoted to chunin a few years later after successfully poisoning an enemy platoon's water supplies, causing the death of around 50 people, thanks to his grandmother's precious teachings. One day later, his parents were murdered by the White Fang, Tsukumo Hatake. His grandma, Chiyo, took him under her wing, teaching him puppetry. At first Sasori only saw the art as a way to gain the power necessary to one day kill his parents' murderer, but the man's suicide deprived him of that pleasure. He had still celebrated the news with his grandmother and about the whole village, getting drunk for the first and only time in his life. It wasn't an experience he particularly liked, having done some disgusting stuff while under the alcohol's influence. Or so he was told the next morning. Before he reached 15, Sasori had become an expert at puppetry, creating multiple designs that allowed the rise of a whole cast of puppet users. The original puppeteers, the successors of his idol, the great Monzaemon Chikamatsu, were only using individual original and complex puppets that, while powerful, needed special treatments to stay utilizable. Sasori became a legend when he created basic designs of dummies that could later be customized while being repaired easily. Basically, he made puppetry accessible and affordable to everyone, allowing the rise of new talents that would have stayed ignored otherwise. But his glory and fame turned when the Sandaime Cage decided to label human puppetry, the new step in his art, as a kinjutsu. For Sasori, puppetry was to be done for puppetry's sake. It was an art, something that shouldn't be limited to human morals. So when Sasori had discovered a way to turn living people into living puppets, giving them a form of immortality and making them living masterpieces, he immediately came to see his leader and almost begged him to give him the funds necessary to develop the idea. If he had accepted, Sasori would have basically given death the middle finger, preventing the Shinigami from taking anyone ever again, and created a monument to eternity. Instead, the leader of the village confiscated Sasori's schematics, put him under supervision, forbade him to teach, and privately labeled him clinically insane. Unofficially, of course. For Sunagakure, the great puppeteer had simply retired for a while so he could work on another brilliant project. It was then that he understood that he had nothing to gain anymore by staying in the village. Evolving puppetry to a next level was a holy quest for the puppeteer, one that his former superiors had tried to hinder in their foolishness. They had betrayed him, so it was only justice he betrayed them in turn. After massacring the Anbu sent to watch him, he reclaimed what the Sandaime had stolen and left the village, leaving only a slashed forehead protector and a letter to Chiyo behind him. Soon after that, he ambushed the Sandaime while the man was training alone in the desert, challenging him to a duel for revenge and to prove once and for all puppetry's superiority over bloodline limits. In his pride and arrogance, the man accepted believing his iron sand to be invincible. He hadn't memorized the lessons taught in the academy. That so many people wielding invincible, or unbeatable, bloodlines and techniques died in battle against opponents that were considered harmless. True, most puppeteers were at a disadvantage against the iron sand wielder as he could use the dust to jam up puppets and simply perform larger scale ninjutsu than what most puppeteers could possibly dream of, but there was no such a thing as the impossible, and Sasori proved it this day by assassinating the cage with his latest invention. Nerve gas. As the previously unbeatable Sandaime cage agonized before him, Sasori took off his cape, revealing his new mechanical body. His gas couldn't affect someone without a brain, making him immune to his own weapons and poisons. Only his heart was still made of flesh. It was unfortunately necessary. People's memories and identity weren't contained within the neurons, contrary to the popular belief, but within their chakra, the link between the soul and the body. The brain was simply the organ that commanded the others, and a puppet body had none. It only needed some seals to work. Taking the cage's body to create another masterpiece, Sasori retired from society, gathering the funds needed for his studies by creating a private spy network and selling information to the highest bidder. The irony was that his own old village became one of his recurring clients. During the war he unwillingly helped in starting when Sunagakure began to accuse all the nearby nations of having kidnapped or assassinated their leader. At least the war gave him large supplies of bodies to work on and the funds to do so for a while. It was during his travels after the war that he found Naruto, sleeping on a road in the land of fire. It was mostly curiosity that pushed him to examine the boy instead of simply ignoring him, an action that made him realize that he had just found a Jinchuriki, far away from any village. Intrigued, Sasori questioned the boy when he woke up, and after hearing how he had escaped from Konoha, the puppeteer jumped on the opportunity. Recruiting a willing Jinchuriki was not something that happened every day, and it would allow Sasori to study the boy's seal. Not once did he regret his decision. Naruto proved himself to be a very loyal and gifted person with multiple flourishing talents that only needed to be polished. Months of travel with him awakened something in Sasori. The boy had a spark in his eyes, one that the puppeteer knew too well. The thirst for knowledge, the desire to create new things, the will to explore the unexplored. The same spark that animated Sasori himself, and that had animated Kabuto, while he was alive. It was this spark that convinced Sasori to teach the blonde puppetry. Unlike Kabuto, who preferred medicine over mechanics, Naruto showed a deep interest in the art, and a great talent in it as well. Perhaps one day, he would be able to surpass Sasori himself, and complete his work. The great puppet master wasn't as arrogant as the Sandaime Kazekage, and knew that someone or something could one day kill him. Naruto was his contingency plan, his legacy. When Kazama and his female counterpart had showed up, Sasori had jumped on the chance to explore new worlds. How could he have resisted? The possibility of meeting doubles of himself that had evolved differently, other puppeteers, and perhaps even puppet masters better than himself was simply too tempting. If things had gone as planned, Sasori would have perhaps made his art evolve to another level once again. But then, the Uchiha attacked, killing Kabuto. Sasori wasn't an emotional person, but after spending years working with someone, you couldn't help but value and respect him. His death didn't really sadden Sasori, but rather angered him. Years of work and studies had been ended, the results of Kabuto's research stolen to be better used by one of his murderers. It was an insult that had to be washed away. His defeats and the threat of losing his legacy only hardened his resolve to one day find a way to kill their pursuers, even if he had to wait for years to do so. Even finding other puppeteers had become a secondary goal. No one pissed him off and lived to tell the tale about it. So, no, Sasori really wasn't a nice person. And yet, he couldn't help but feel inwardly happy when Kazama smiled at the photos the puppeteer had taken in Konohagakure. Empathy was still screwing with him again, no matter how hard he had tried to repress it in the past. So the Inuzuka adopted us? Kitsune asked. Yes, Chibaku said, as he stared at a picture of a Naruto riding on a large black dog and wearing facial markings. Apparently, he is Kiba's best buddy and a respected chunin. Some still dislike him for being a demon vessel, but he has friends. And a loving family. Cool dog. Naruto exclaimed. Why can't we have one? I had dog summons, Kakashi said. But apparently, I can't call them anymore. Not cool, Chibaku said. I really want to be able to ride a dog like this Inuzuka Naruto. It would be so badass. Anyway, Haku declared, while Chibaku was trapped in his fantasies, I assume it means we have nothing more to do in this world. Are we going to leave it? Yes, Kazama answered. As soon as possible. Sasori scoffed. This time, I will put some recording seals on you to analyze the way your seal works. We will be able to leave in 1 hour, right before noon. Please, prepare your bags in the meantime. I would hate to wait for you. The rest of the group nodded, and left one after the other. Naruto briefly locked eyes with Kazama, before walking away. In the end, only Kakashi stayed with the two, much to Sasori's irritation. I asked him to be there beforehand, Kazama said. I have something to talk about with you too, there are things that need to be discussed. Sasori raised an eyebrow, and began drawing seals on sheets of paper he had prepared. I'm listening. During my fight with Tsukiyomi, the team began. He tried to convince me to join him. I obviously refused, but during our talk, he showed me a recorded meeting of an organization called the Inner Council, aka, the conspiracy responsible of most of and my counterparts' problems. Sasori stopped writing, and Kakashi's eyes widened. You do realize it's an enemy that showed you that? The redhead frowned. He isn't the most reliable source of information. I know. He had already lied to me once, and it's why I want your point of view. The Inner Council was an organization that formed during the Shadaime's rule. Sasori started slowly. It was composed of powerful clan heads that thought he was unfit to rule after giving the Biju to other countries. It got wiped out by the newly created Anbu, under the direction of the Nadaime Hokage when it refused to disband after he inherited his brother's job. It reformed during the Sandaime's late term after Orochimaru's betrayal and Danzo's actions in a megacure. Danzo? Kazama asked, frowning. Anbu's former commander, Kakashi explained. He was one of the Sandaime's teammates, and his rival for the title of Hokage. After serving as one of Konoha's generals for years, he was forced into retirement after the Sandaime discovered he had secretly founded his own, personal Anbu, an organization called Root. Officially, Sasori corrected. Unofficially, Root still exists, even if it is only a shadow of its former self. And really, the reason why he has been forced to retire is that he tried to forge an alliance with Hanzo, a Megacure's leader, without Konoha's consent. They can't have rogue elements like him acting freely without consulting anyone. How can Root still exist? Kakashi wondered. The village cut Danzo's funding and arrested most of his old allies or forced them into retirement. A shadow of its former self, I said, Sasori responded. At best, there are 300 members, a tenth of the ANBU's number. Little cells are easier to fund and maintain, and they probably are recruited in early childhood. With the number of talented and unclaimed orphans on the roads, it is very easy to find and craft powerful and loyal soldiers. Kakashi's expression darkened, and the puppeteer immediately understood why. Sasori had, of course, some knowledge of the man's life, and had learned the general lines of the Ayatsuri's case from some outside sources. He was even doubting that the man's journals had been all destroyed, despite what Konoha had claimed, but such information would only anger the man greatly, and he had no need to prove it, so the puppeteer kept his doubts for himself. This new inner council repeated the mistake of the old one, and refused to disband when the Yondaime came into power, and ended like the older one. The inner circle you're talking about probably appeared soon after the Kyuubi's attack. I haven't enough information on them, since I haven't been able to contact Homura Mitokado for a long while. My version of Konoha had increased its security and military after Chibaku's departure, so it was too risky to approach him. He was one of the members that Madara showed me, Kazama said, as Sasori finished writing sealing arrays on 4 sheets of paper. Along with Kaharu Udatane. Predictable. They are always together. In fact, they had an affair in their youth. They are more firm and authoritarian than Sarutobi, so it was kind of obvious they would try to affirm themselves. They have large bank accounts and many allies and contacts in the daimyo's court. Hiashi Hyuga. The strongest clan in Konoha, after the Uchiha massacre. We already know that they were the drive and masterminds behind the conspiracy, so no surprise. Shibi Aburame. Head of the Aburame clan. Polite, but a firm believer in discipline and a close ally of Hiashi. When one is nearby, the other isn't far away. He also has allies in some minor countries, and possesses many shops in the Land of Fire. Quote, Shikaku Nara. Master strategist and planner. Probably the brain of the whole operation. Though I wonder why is he helping such a takeover. He must know that antagonizing a demon vessel and the Hokage is harmful in the long term. Perhaps is he simply not confident enough in Konoha's ruler's abilities. Inoichi Yamanaka. Shikaku's best friend, a spy master, and a great psychologist. Probably the second brain of the operation. Is the owner of many florist shops that are a front for information gathering operations and possible assassination. The rest of the names involved some Junin or merchants that Sasori knew enough about to say they were simply opportunists, powerless without the great clans to back them up. They didn't bother him. The leaders, however. Why isn't Danzo among them? Kakashi asked, giving voice to Sasori's doubts. I thought he would be a member, being willing to undermine the Hokage and all. Perhaps. Sasori trailed off. But this man is fanatically loyal to Konoha itself, and the inner council is weakening it. He probably sees himself as Sarutobi's closest ally, even if he is willing to ignore his wishes in order to help him. And he is probably one of the only people in the village that wouldn't mind Naruto getting stronger, as long as he is loyal, at least, if he is the same person there as he is in my world. Is my information correct in your universe too, Kakashi-san? The Junin nodded. But it doesn't mean they're right in all of them. This might be problematic, Kazama said. If the conspiracy differs in all worlds, then we will punish those that cross our path, Kakashi announced. At least, after we correct the Madara problem. I agree, Sasori added. Dealing with them and testing the validity of Tsukiyomi's claims is a secondary objective. Kazama clearly wasn't happy with that, but reluctantly nodded. The first, now, is to outmaneuver our pursuers. He put the sheets of paper on the blonde's shoulders, forehead, and belly. These seals will memorize everything that happens to you. Modifications of your chakra, interferences, sounds, visions, it will give us some insight into your ability. How it works, what are its limits, and if it can be used in another way than simply teleporting to another world. Getting up, the puppeteer locked eyes with the world wanderer. Our first test will be simple, checking out the precision of your teleportation. You can already transport us at places like the forest near Konoha. Now we will test if you can teleport near this person, or near this thing. Kakashi blinked. Like a Sharingan. Like a Sharingan, Sasori agreed. We will test if you can go near a Sharingan, but one that doesn't belongs to Uchiha Madara. First, to test the precision, and second, to prevent our capture. At this time, we should have 2 worlds of advance, but we can never be sure. The girl, Naruto. Is everyone ready? Naru-sensei asked. Seeing them all nod, Kazama smiled. We are going to go near a Sharingan, one that, I hope, won't be Madara or even hostile. Still, prepare yourselves for battle, just in case. Naruto nervously took a few Senbon between her fingers, quickly imitated by Haku. The Yuki had shown her where to put them on someone's body to paralyze some nerves, but she hadn't tried to do that for real. At least, she had all her other techniques to make up for her lack of experience. Sideway, she saw Zabuza grab his sword's grip, and Kitsune doing the same. Chibaku took a kunai in hand, and Sasori simply cracked his fingers, being ready to use his flamethrower anytime. Kazama unsheathed the kusanagi, and closed his eyes. A flash of light later, they found themselves standing in the middle of a field of red flowers. What is this place? Naruto wondered out loud, looking at her surroundings. The sky was made of yellow clouds, and the field was circled with completely black trees. Looking beneath her, the blonde girl noticed that all the flowers, petals were intertwined, protecting the core of the plant from the outside world. Well, no Sharingan around, Zabuza grunted. You suck at accuracy and orientation, brat. I don't understand, Naru-sensei replied as he scowled. I pictured a Sharingan in my mind. We should have teleported near one. Naruto's eyes was immediately attracted by one of the plant that was slightly moving. This place is freaky, Chibaku said. Something is bothering the Kyuubi. Something like. The petals opened. A predator, revealing a Sharingan with one swirling tomo. Before Naruto had even the time to pale, all the flowers opened, all revealing a red eye in their middle. Each of them staring at the group. Chibaku blinked in surprise. Shit. Immediately, dozens of long spiky vines whipped out from the ground, trying to seize the humans like they were some kind of snake. The ninjas quickly dispersed, stepping back as new vines erupted to capture them. At the same time, multiple Sharingan began to appear on the trees, bark, eyeing the fleeing shinobi. Their roots rose out of the earth, and lifted the plants above the soil. And then, they began to walk through the field, balancing their branches menacingly. As Naruto avoided a vine, her mind worked frantically to try to understand the situation. Plants weren't supposed to be hostile, or even have bloodline limits. One of the trees reached her, and attempted to hit her with one of its appendages. Gracefully jumping above it, Naruto then leapt on the bark, and tried to ram a Senbon in one of its eyes. But instead of adhering to the surface, the blonde's feet slipped. Successfully landing safely on the ground, the girl then threw her weapons at the bark, hitting 2 Sharingan. The eyes began to shed black blood, and another one gazed into her own, twisting into a shuriken-like form. The world turned red, full of tears and screams. Her death was inevitable. Her friends and family would get smashed and turned to shreds, their blood feeding the plants like countless before them. They would soon join the multiple devoured bodies, hidden under the red field. An animalistic roar resonated in her mind, and reality returned to normal, the tree's Sharingan glaring hatefully at the blonde. Kyuubi. The girl wondered. Yes, the Biju responded. I don't know how, but these plants can use the Sharingan and one of its advanced techniques, Tsukiyomi. I can break any illusion ensnaring you, but you should gather your friends and escape as quickly as possible before being outnumbered. I know, the blonde replied, as she pierced the tree's last eyes, before rotating toward her companions, who were struggling with the vines and trees. Zabuza was cutting them one after the other. Haku had transformed one into ice. Kakashi and Sasori had just set two on fire. Kitsune, Chibaku and Kazama were fighting two trees all wrapped into twisted armors of yellow chakra. More walking plants were slowly but surely closing the distance between them and the Arashi clan, like an advancing sea of branches and leaves. Why are they trying to kill us? The girl wondered, as she rushed at her ally's side. To nourish themselves, the Kyuubi replied. They suck their victims' blood to feed on it. When you have been put under the tree's illusion, I've briefly connected with its mind. What I've found in it is disturbing, to put it simply. Why is this forest like this though? She asked, as she took a kunai and slashed a vine with it. The forest has a mind of its own, the Biju explained, and it really wants to kill everyone passing through it. You and your friends are the lasts of a very long list of prey and victims, including the forest's creator, some kind of crazy scientist that thought creating Sharingan-producing plants was a good idea. Guys, she shouted. The forest is trying to kill us. No, it's just trying to hug us. Chibaku deadpanned, as he finally found an opening in the tree's armor, making an explosive kunai passing through it. The plant was instantly reduced to ashes. Everyone, gather around me. Kazama shouted. I'll teleport us out of here. So soon? Kakashi asked. That's probably risky. It's either crossing worlds or facing that, Kazama declared, as he stared at an advancing army of Sharingan trees, most of them clad in chakra armor. Okay, the Junin trailed off. World jump, Zabuza agreed, as he avoided getting smashed by a large branch. Now, Naruto shouted, as the whole group got encircled. Kazama closed his eyes, and red light filled the clearing. An invisible force made the girl crash on a rock. Difficultly rising up and trying to deal with the pain, Naruto stared at her surroundings. She and the rest of her group were either standing or laying on a plain, under a blue sky and near a big mountain. On it, a little village was constructed. Helping Naru-sensei getting up, the girl saw that the teen's skin had turned white. Boss, are you alright? She asked worryingly. I feel sick, he muttered, touching his belly with his palm. The seal is burning. This is worrisome, Sasori stated. Perhaps we have overloaded it. Kitsune's disturbed murmurs interrupted them. Guys, I think you should look at that. He pointed his finger at something before him. The air before him was breached. A tiny crack was spilling foul-smelling smoke, and slightly growing with each passing second. The tear into space seemed to bleed, spilling molten metal on the grass below, slowly starting a fire. What is this? Zabuza wondered. Doesn't look good. Suddenly, the breach widened, growing to take the size of a large gate. Beyond it, Naruto could see large rocky islands, floating on a sea of lava and molten gold. Also, multiple pairs of yellow, shining eyes were glaring at them malevolently. An instant later, the ninjas jumped backward, as a large form crossed the breach and landed where they were previously standing, creating a small crater as a result. As dust filled the airs, Naruto saw other shadowy figures passing through the gate. When the girl could see clearly, she gasped and paled. They were facing monsters. The very large thing that had almost smashed them was a large, bulky creature looking like a bull standing on its legs and having hands. It was wielding a large iron mace, and his eyes were like two suns. When he opened his mouth, he revealed two sets of fangs. A twin of the beast was standing behind it, glaring ferociously at Kazama. At his sides, two humanoids wearing red armor and holding two-handed blazing swords. The opening in their cuirasses only revealed black bones and two green glows in place of the eyes. They weren't moving, as if they were dead. Which they probably were, in a way. Behind them were standing two ogre-like beasts, blue and red, with horns, large fangs, wild white hair, and 6 fingers. They were wearing black kimonos, sandals, and iron clubs. They smirked at Naruto and company, as if they were trying to appear nice, while they inwardly weren't. The last creature was bigger. In fact, it overshadowed everyone. It was around 12 feet tall, and looked like a humanoid lizard. It had a purple, thick skin, a dart at the end of its tail, and 2 yellow wings without feathers. It had a long neck, impressive claws, and a green substance was dripping from its fangs. The lizard stared at the ninjas, making them straighten and stiffen. You, he declared with a raspy, deep, inhuman voice, you are the summoners. Thank you for having called us. You have the Makai's eternal gratitude. Naruko's jaw dropped. It's nothing, she replied lamely. You will be handsomely rewarded for your help, the lizard continued. Money, love, power, immortality, you will have whatever you want. I, Kishin, ruler of the Sea of Fire and son of the great Kiryu, will make sure of it. Nobody had any idea of what to respond to that. Take your time to think about it, Kishin said. We have all the time in the world, now that you have opened the gate. I have no idea of how did you succeed at opening a permanent breach between our two plans of existence. It's quite the feat. Kazama smiled uneasily. Well, it was quite hazardous. It is still very impressive, the lizard praised him. I don't sense any residual magic or chakra, which means you have done that with your will alone. Only gods have that power, young son of man. I'm sure that with enough training and adapted techniques, you will be able to open bigger breaches, or make your abilities ascend to another level. Thank you. The team trailed off, not sure what to say. Naruko could understand. It wasn't all days that you were praised by some kind of winged reptile. Kishin seemed to smirk. I think we can begin today. I know a ritual that, with a large number of human sacrifices, should be sufficient to widen the breach, and allow the invasion force to annex this dimension. Naruko's eyes widened. Invasion force. Invasion force. Kazama asked out loud. Well, yes, the invasion force, the winged beast smirked. Who do you think we are? Unorganized savages. Our legions are already gathering from the other side of the portal. Within 7 hours, this world will be Hell's property. He stared at Kazama. As a reward for your help, you will be of course given dominion over this plane, and perhaps even others, if you can open more gates. The size is a bit problematic, but as long as there are local settlements nearby it won't be a problem. It looked at the town on the mountain. Like this one. I smell some fresh blood, young, tasty children. It licked its lips, immediately imitated by the other creatures. I'm already hearing the screams of their parents when I will eat their progeny and burn their home to the ground. Maim. The other creatures singed, ignoring the terrified expressions of Naruko's group. Kill. Burn. We will lose sweet destruction, my dears, Kishin promised. This village will be the first of our never-ending conquest. It stared at the humans. Would you like to participate? It will always be possible to discuss the terms of your allegiance to Hell, rewards, obligations, rank in the legions and all that stuff later. Believe me, killing innocent people is a good sport. Especially when they can't fight back. Naruko's eyes widened horrifically, she prepared herself to fight. In your dreams. Yeah, Chibaku declared, as he unsealed Uke Mochi. No way I'm going to let you destroy this town. Who the fuck are you? Zabuza growled. The lizard seemed to frown. Wait, it blinked. You didn't summon us on purpose, did you? You are not demon summoners. The other monsters grinned, seizing their weapons, quickly imitated by the humans. But then a deep sound began to resonate. Kishin was laughing. It's really a lucky day. The creature roared. I thought you were already corrupted. Now, I have to tempt you, making this all the sweeter. It smirked. You have absolutely no idea of who I am, do you? It asked, as his eyes glowed even brighter. Let me present myself. I am the Demon Lord Kishin, emissary of the Makai, and top general of the forces of Hell. And crap, Naruko thought. My dear friends. It announced. I am a representative of the Makai, the great and beautiful realm where all corrupt souls end and suffer when they die. Always seeking to enslave other planes of the existence, the demon lords ruling it are thereby offering you, accidental summoners, a chance to tag along for the ride that is the great and glorious conquest of everything that is. Its wings moved, began to fly, roared, and then breathed a blue fire at the sky. In exchange for your precious help, the Makai will offer you whatever you want, immortality, riches, women and men, slaves, territories, power, knowledge, vacations in our dominions. I especially counsel the last. We have some wonderful beaches and hostels in Hell. It added with a smirk. In exchange, we only need your eternal allegiance, and some annual sacrifices. No need to offer your soul, since you will immediately be promoted in the demonic hierarchy once you're dead, in case you don't choose immortality. We are nefarious, not treacherous. It stared at the humans below. How can you refuse such generous offer? You know, no need to mind about the many, many people you and we are going to kill, devour, enslave, torture and or oppress, depending on the preferences. They will understand that you couldn't have let such opportunity like this slide. The ninja's answer was a series of hand seals. Well, the lizard trailed off. We can always force you to cooperate, or you're just that masochist. Demons, attack, capture the summoner, and kill the rest of them. Really, the Kyuubi whispered in Naruto's mind, as the other demons charged at her. The next time your counterpart creates a dimensional gate to somewhere in the cosmos, tell him to open the way to heaven instead. The Dragoness. In some world, where distorted angels were fighting giant creatures protecting mankind, a dragon demon god thing stiffened. She had been tranquilly resting on a paradisiacal island, taking a break from her container's insane adventures. Not that she didn't enjoy contributing to the chaos herself, mind you, when she had sensed someone messing with the fabric of reality, in the bad sense of the term. Even if she had never considered herself a card-carrying member of the fiendish races, demonic blood still ran strongly in her veins. She could listen to the whispers of the abysses, and her mind was still connected with those of her unstable and corrupted relatives, and one of them, a powerful demon lord, had just been summoned in an unregistered universe by some human and was inviting every available fiend to help him conquer it. Idiot. Under normal circumstances, the Dragoness would have simply left the locals deal with the threat, but two things were unsettling. The first was that, well, it was an undiscovered universe, and there was always a chance that the natives had no way to deal with a trans-universal demonic invasion. It wasn't that she went out of her way to help random universes every time one looked like it needed help, just the opposite. Quite frequently she just stayed on the sidelines and watched the shows unfold, but she wasn't cruel enough to let her grandfather's spawn ravage a defenseless world unchecked when said spawn was doing such a sloppy job of just getting into the world. It would let the demons' heads get too big, as if many weren't big enough. The second was that, well, the summoner hadn't used any known spell or technique to call upon her relative. He had just torn space apart. That was neither normal for dimension travelers, nor good. None of the demons of the invading world knew how exactly the fabrics of reality had been breached, but they were all aware that the opening of a permanent, if small, portal between a fiendish plan and a human world had been made. Anyone with any education in the field was aware that this was no small feat, that only incredibly powerful people or creatures could even hope to accomplish something like this. The mere possibility of allying with an evil summoner able to open gates through the multiverse was exciting to the demons, terrifying for almost everyone else. And very annoying for her. The Dragoness was not going to allow someone with that power to join the forces of evil. Or at least the forces of impulsive, rampant, destructive evil. Smart evil bad guys at least had some self-control when it came to matters like these. The multiverse had already enough evil overlord wannabes. No need to have another troublemaker, especially if this one was a menace to multiple worlds. Dealing with him now would spare the Dragoness future hassle, so she could do her own thing, which was mess around with the heads of obnoxious and clueless unknowing figures of great power that couldn't jump between worlds. Flying away to another island, the deity decided to pick a couple of her servants along for the ride. Dealing with demons and malevolent humans was an activity she was doing all the time, and a sport that she really enjoyed since her targets were almost as creative and varied as her 5 servants, but she wasn't an expert at sealing interdimensional portals. Traveling and making them, yes, that was easy, but torn portals required a certain touch. Quickly finding her container lazily sunbathing on a beach, the Dragoness dive-bombed her, literally. It was good for the woman that the otherworldly being was only the size of a sparrow at the point in time. The woman only got a small concussion from the blow that left her inside a 10-foot deep crater. Zuzushi, you stupid lizard. The girl spat out irritably as she picked herself out from the hole in the ground. I was having a good dream full of candy. I actually managed to break my record of chewing on 8 jawbreakers at once in them. We can pacify your sweet tooth later, the Dragoness purred. I need you and Ghost, and perhaps even his apprentice. We have work to do. The black-haired girl, also known as Shadow, growled. It's a vacation, damn it, offered by Gendo Akari, of all people. Willingly. We didn't have to blackmail or bribe or do anything for him this time somehow, which I am still trying to figure out how Ghost managed to pull off. It's the reason why I actually bothered to travel here in the first place. We are not supposed to work. Ignoring her Canadiner's childish wrath, the Sky Mother bolted off into the sky, and as such was quickly followed by said irritated vessel. Faster than the wind the two flew toward the dragon's strongest servant and his blonde apprentice, who were eating ice cream with a blue-haired girl and a male teenager, and dive-bombed him in the same manner as her apprentice. The impact launched the local teens away hard enough that they were knocked out, but the apprentice managed to land unharmed. What the F? A physically 14-and-a-half-year-old Naruto Uzumaki, otherwise known as Konoha's Feral Gale, nearly swore before realizing what had just happened. Why the hell can't anything you guys do be settle for once? My ice cream. The second immortal shouted in pain and loss as he looked at the melted and discarded frozen dairy product several feet away from him. He had a future ahead of him with a wife and 3 children. Why? One of my demonic cousins was summoned to an unregistered universe near the boys by accident, and the idiot is calling out to literally every demonic presence that can possibly make it to see if they want to join in the fun. Zuzushi explained, ignoring her strongest servant's temporary moment of insanity. The portal is permanent and unstable, so we have to fix it while kicking his ass so that he doesn't get ahead of himself, and maim the idiot who foolishly made the portal in the first place. The dragoness explained. A permanent portal. Shadow raised an eyebrow. That's new. Naruto sighed, resigned to be used to solve another problem that he shouldn't have any part of. This was the 3rd random excursion that he had to take since his master took him dimension hopping for his training. Why do we always have to do crazy stuff? I thought your training trip was simply going to stay that, a training trip. And people thought that shit only happens when I'm the one in charge of the missions. There is a good reason for that, the god of none grunted as he picked himself up, reversing time on his body so that the several dozen broken bones that he received didn't exist anymore. It's called Murphy's Law, that, and the multiverse hates my guts for some obscure reason. I gathered. The boy sighed before looking at the knocked out Rei and Shinji. Ah, shouldn't we do something about them? You know, make sure they aren't dead and stuff. They'll be fine. Ghost waved a hand lazily. Shinji's an optimistic idiot, so he heals quickly, and Rei is the silent cold type. They always get back right up no matter what. Fine, Shadow sulked to the dragon as she covered herself in darkness before her natural casual attire materialized from the empty substance. After this you better not bug us with chores again, Zuzushi. Scare one of the local gods to do your work for once instead of dumping it on us. The dragoness snorted as she opened a portal in front of the group of 3. Sure, whatever you say, slave. Fucking walking purse.
Traveler. Original. Naruto. Kazama Arashi. Puppeteer. Naruto. Chibaku Arashi. Were Fox Hybrid. Naruto. Kitsune Arashi. Female. Naruto. Naruko Arashi. Deceiver. Original. Madara. Tsukiyomi. Destroyer Rinnegan. Madara. Susanoo. Warrior Collector. Madara. Amaterasu. Disclaimer. I don't own Naruto.
Chapter 14. Insight.
During his life, Zabuza had fought many opponents. He had massacred 100 soon-to-be genin before he had even reached the age of 12. He had murdered his sensei to impress a swordsman of the mist and convince him to take him as his apprentice, inadvertently making him a chunin in the process. He had killed said new master in a duel for the beheading knife, the sword he currently wielded. He had faced the Mizukage alongside 3 other allies, and barely escaped alive, bleeding profusely on Kisami's back, as they had run away from an enraged Jinchuriki. He had survived the assaults of entire teams of Hunternins, and continued walking. And more recently, he had fought a group of SS-ranked enemies and lived to tell the tale about it. But it was the first time he was fighting animated skeletons.
Deflecting a simple boring slash attack, Zabuza wondered if they were really demons or just some dead souls having been conscripted in the forces of hell. He just, well, expected more from devils. The 2 he was dealing with at once were simply using their blades with skill that couldn't be compared to his own. If they were the best weapon masters the Makai had to offer, then no wonder they needed to recruit ninjas. These 2 could put a good fight against average samurai, but against one of the best swordsmen of Kiri. They were cannon fodder. Time to remind these clowns who was at the top of the food chain here.
In a flash, Zabuza smashed one of his enemy's head with his blade, breaking the helmet, the skull, the thorax, the spine. Well, everything in one blow. The skeleton crumbled into a pile of bones, the glow in its eye socket vanishing. Its companion tried to flank the missing nin, only to lose his head as Zabuza punched it so hard that the skull shattered in many parts. The body fell, the green glow disappeared, and the former Kirinin began to look for new prey. He soon found one, sort of. One of the ogre-like creatures was glaring at him, holding its iron club menacingly, while being imprisoned inside a block of ice. Zabuza locked eyes with his adopted daughter, who smiled sheepishly. "Well, I thought it would be a good paperweight." She feebly tried to excuse herself. The swordsman snorted. "Too ugly," he said as he shattered the snowman with his blade, killing the monster inside in the process. "Find something else." Haku scowled, but gave no verbal reply. To his side, Zabuza saw the head of the second ogre being propelled in the air by pressurized water, Sasori quickly sealing the beheaded body in a scroll, probably to dissect it later. Or do something even worse, something the swordsman had no intention of witnessing. He had listened to Chibaku's stories about his masters. Special puppets, after all. A bit away, one of the humanoid bulls cried as the aforementioned blonde puppeteer made his puppet unleash a concentrated stream of gas right at the creature's eyes. Fortunately for it, Kitsune decided to give it a merciful death by having Samehada absorb its chakra until it was reduced to a dead husk.
The last minor demon probably cried a bit too, but Zabuza couldn't see it as the beast was pinned to the ground by a true mountain of Naruto clones, while Kazama and Kakashi slammed Rasengan after Rasengan into its stomach. After a while, the two stopped, leaving the cadaver behind as they walked toward the rest of the group, the army of Naruto right after them.
All in all, Kishin's flunkies had lasted less than 5 minutes. "Well then," the Demon Lord said, eyeing the massacre from the sky, his wings beating the air every few seconds. "That was quick." "I don't know if you feel the same, guys and girls," Chibaku muttered, "but I expected something more. Difficult?" "Yeah," Naruto agreed. "For demons they were certainly easy to beat." "Blame demonic politics," Kishin grumbled. "Most demon lords are so focused on keeping their position, not to mention the fact that the majority of them are amazingly stupid and ignorant, that they kill everyone that could present a danger to them. Or in a nutshell, anyone that shows any intelligence, strength, or competence. Hell is now composed of armies of cannon fodder and a few really, really powerful generals that cannot grow any more powerful than they already are, lest they develop the potential to destroy planets, and thus increase the odds of destroying our own forces and property in fits of rage. Why do you think we haven't conquered the universe yet?" Zabuza snorted. "Well, that's Yagura's Kiri taken to its logical extremes." "I don't understand," Kitsune declared. "If you are so afraid of having competition, why do you still want to recruit strong people?" "Strong mortals," the creature corrected. "Here is the trick. As long as they don't die, our mortal allies are out of the demonic hierarchy, which means that they can't command or steal our large armies, lacking the link that unites all fiends. This also means that they can't kill demon lords permanently. You see, each time we die, we recompose ourselves in the Makai and are reborn. But if the murderer is a fiend like us, it instead absorbs our energy and becomes a demon lord. You kill it, you keep it." "That's a bit freaky," Chibaku muttered. "Are you implying you're cannibalistic?" "Well, we are demons, not vegetarians. Unless, of course, you are counting demonic plants-only diets, of course," Kishin replied. "Since most demons are weak, conquering other universes has become quite hard, so we have to make deals with mortals to keep our reputation as fearsome as ever. So, are you sure you don't want to help these poor creatures defend themselves against the cruel and nasty heroes and celestial beings that always screw with us?" Zabuza feigned, pondering the offer. "Well, how to tell you that politely? No." Kishin shook its head. We are offering you the chance to correct a great injustice. We are desperately trying to recuperate what is rightfully ours from the claws of these loathsome, disgusting, overconfident creatures that have yet to repent for their sins. But you can't just stop thinking about yourselves. I'm hurt, he spoke with an almost sincerely sad tone, so deeply hurt. Is it me? Or is it trying to guilt-trip us? Naruto wondered. It appears so, Zabuza replied, watching the spectacle without really knowing how to react to it. Really, I feel almost sorry for it. Keyword, almost. Of course I'm trying to guilt-trip you, Kishin declared with a suddenly angry voice. You cannot be corrupted, so appealing to your inner goodness might work. At least he's honest and straightforward, Naruto deadpanned. It could have if you hadn't menaced to burn a village to the ground some minutes ago, Kazama pointed out, and also ordered your soldiers to either kill or capture us. That doesn't tend to earn points with most people. Well, the villagers would have attacked us first. It's self-defense. And by killing and capturing you, I actually meant convincing you to work for us through special techniques. He made finger quotes on his redefinition of the term, especial in torturing you or using very evil rituals to resurrect you as efficient. If stupid members of the demonic legions. Everyone in the group rolled its eyes. You know, why haven't we killed him yet? Zabuza asked. Because I'm really convincing, Kishin tried hopefully. The glares of the humans made it sneer. Okay. You don't want to settle this diplomatically. Well, if you want to fight, you will have it. The swordsman snorted, as if you had a chance you. He never finished his sentence, as Kishin dive-bombed them like a meteor, almost crushing them all under his body. The ninja's reflexes saved their lives, making them jump backward to avoid the attack, but the shockwave made all of Naruto's clones explode. Zabuza barely had the time to blink before Kishin closed the distance between the two of them. The creature, despite its size, was even faster than Haku herself. I'm a demon. Lord, the monster growled with all the social part of his personality gone, as his claws pierced the air toward the missing nin's heart, which means that I am one of the best the Makai has to offer in terms of power. Don't underestimate me simply because I was willing to attempt to be nice about converting you.
Quickly, Zabuza protected his torso with sword, shielding himself, or so he thought. Instead, the claws drilled through the metal, creating holes in it, and then went through the man's flesh as if it was butter. His damaged blade saved his life, preventing the claws from touching the vital points, but he couldn't help but crash helplessly on his back, heavily wounded and his vision already blurring. Before losing conscience, he heard Haku shout his name and Kishin roar cruelly.
The traveler, Kazama. Zabuza-sama. As Haku rushed to her mentor's side, Kishin turned around and charged at her. Acting quickly, Chibaku projected a lot of gas at the demonic lizard from his puppet. The creature didn't seem to be affected by the poison, but changed target and punched Yukimochi, demolishing the puppet in one blow. As the blonde puppeteer cursed inwardly, Sasori used his flamethrower, and Kazama enhanced it with the heat wave. The result was a massive inferno which engulfed Kishin completely. Chibaku, go help Zabuza. The World Wanderer ordered his younger counterpart. Kitsune, follow and protect him. Naruto Kakashi, help us with long-range techniques.
As his friends took their position, their enemy got out of the fire completely unscathed, still charging at a speed that could be compared to Lee's. Since flames apparently didn't work, Sasori switched weapons and shot pressurized water at the demon, which was deflected by the creature's dense hard-scaled skin. Before the rest of the humans could begin their techniques, Kishin had closed the gap between them and swung his arm, attempting to tear the group apart with his claws. While they dispersed, the beast's tail moved swiftly and its dart pierced Sasori's body below the heart, breaking his body in half.
Acting quickly, Kakashi exploited the opening by ramming a Chidori on the monster's left limb, only to see the electricity absorbed by its body. The silver-haired man only had time to blink before Kishin seized him and smashed the ninja into the ground, making a small crater in the process. As the demon approached the stunned Junin, Kazama unsheathed the kusanagi, pointed it toward the creature's head, and activated the blade's piercing and stretching ability. The sword impaled the demon's left eye, making the beast shed black blood and release its prey, who fell on the ground. The monster roared angrily, opened its muzzle, and breathed a green fireball toward the blonde. Naruto jumped into the attack's path and made hand seals, transforming the remnants of Sasori's water into a wave, which evaporated as it made contact with the blast, and stopped it. And then a dart shot out of the steam, pierced Naruto's belly, and sent her flying away. His eyes widening in horror, Kazama gritted his teeth and unleashed the strongest cold wave he could create at Kishin. The lizard opened its wings and then flew in the air, avoiding the blast of wind, only to become the target of multiple ice shards thrown at it. "Keep him back!" Haku shouted as she rushed in Naruto's direction. "I saw liquid dripping from the dart. It's probably poison. I can slow it down by partly freezing her, but I need cover." "Go!" Kazama replied, as he projected blast after blast at the demonic flying lizard, who avoided them all. "Where are Chibaku and Kitsune?" "The first is treating Zabuza-sama's wounds." She put her palms on a groaning Naruto's torso. "The second, I don't know." "And shit." The lizard dive-bombed him, while flaring his claws. Acting quickly, Kazama activated his chakra chains and jumped to the side. The flying bastard barely missed him, but the ephemeral restraints captured his wings and tied them, forcing the demon to crash brutally into the ground. The blonde's chains winded around his enemy's body, and both Kishin and Kazama struggled. The first to break free, the second to keep the demon contained. And then Samihara ripped them apart. And then Kishin screamed as Kitsune jumped above its tied wings and slashed them with his sword. The fish-like creature shredded the wings apart, reducing them to the state of bleeding tatters of skin. The monster roared and whipped the boy with its tail, sending him fly away. The young Jinchuriki landed near his teenager counterpart and quickly got up. "I hope I'm not late." "No," Kazama replied. "I assume you were waiting for an opportunity." "Yes, figure, watch out." The demon lord had opened its muzzle in their direction and didn't seem so happy. "Die," he roared before shooting another green fireball at them. Or at least they thought. Instead, the blast was sent toward Haku and Naruto. Acting quickly, the World Wanderer rotated and intercepted the attack with the cold wave, deflecting it. But in doing so, he ceased to focus on the chains, and Kishin seized the opportunity to shatter them. As Kazama turned around again, the demon lord was standing on its legs and deeply inhaling. And then, it unleashed a green inferno at them. As an ocean of fire advanced toward them at an incredible speed, the two Naruto could only blink as death came to claim them. Or not. Almost as if reality itself had decided to intervene at that moment, the fire that would have immolated the teen stopped, twisted, and extinguished itself, much to everyone's amazement.
And then, something big dive-bombed Kishin. Some sort of silver and pink thing hit the demon lord, created a crater in the process, and then flew again in the air.
Who in their right mind is foolish enough to attack a demon general? I do hope you are well aware of how incredibly stupid that. Kishin got up, looked at its attacker, and paled. Its purple skin literally turned white, and its jaw dropped. No, it cannot be. Zizuzushi.
Ah, Kishin, the creature, which looked some kind of serpentine dragon, landed lightly onto the ground and growled lightly as if almost amused. Despite the fact that it seemed to be talking, none of the humans there could tell what the gender of it was supposed to be, as it seemed to speak telepathically through their very minds. "I'm not surprised. Out of all the demon lords sired by my grandfather, you were one of the few who remained somewhat honest and organized while still maintaining power. yet still foolish enough to jump at any opportunity shown in front of you without making sure that it wouldn't bite you in the long run.
Kazama shivered as the silver creature whipped its tail onto the ground in irritation and felt something quake around him. Even though the ground was what was hit, he felt as if something more essential had been what had been impacted. Even if Kishin hadn't been naturally afraid of the new visitor, the teen knew that it was something far beyond what he had encountered so far in his travels. "This is a new level of stupidity even for you," the dragon continued. "You were actually foolish enough to jump into an unknown world at the call of a random summoner, just because the portal had the potential to be permanent. Whatever happened to the expendable minions' first rule? Going in head first without grasping the situation is something expected from amateurs. Such haphazard planning will only end with your enslavement or crushing defeat in the end, either for me, a god that actually decides to get off of its ass, or another group of copy and pasted heroes."
The creature gritted its fangs, clearly swallowing his pride as he bowed. "You have a point as always, my lady. I may have let my excitement gotten the better of me due to the circumstances, however it will not happen again. Regardless, I am confused. Great and respected Sky Mother, what are you doing here? I thought you don't go out of your way to aid most other worlds that are endangered. Quite the contrary, you are rather known to destroy a few on occasion."
"Don't mistake my appearance to be for mere charity," the creature, apparently female, replied irritably. "Even you should be able to tell that your summoner used an unknown and unstable power. Something like that should not be in the hands of ones, such as yourself, for obvious reasons. You are lucky that I got to you first. If the gods and other higher-level existences heard of what you were about to do with the child, or had they discovered your gross abuse of this portal to unleash far more greater demons than is appropriate, then getting maimed on levels that only I can deliver would be the least of your problems. As for your summoner, if he truly is willing to call stupid, irrational, destructive demons to do his bidding, then he is either a misanthropic, genocidal maniac, an evil overlord admirer, overly ambitious, insane, or really, really stupid. In all cases, allowing him to grow in power and menace other universes unchecked would be extremely annoying for me, especially if he boosts your ego." Kazama was never one to assume things based on colors. However, even he would admit that he had never expected to see the color pink, such a malevolent form as he did now, while observing the dragon's eyes glow. "Time to remind you who really calls the shots in the multiverse."
But, the lizard shook its head vehemently. "But you are mistaken. The summoning was an accident."
"Of course it was," the flying thing declared with blatant sarcasm. "It's always an accident. Like the time my container woke up and found herself naked next to 3 women and an albino midget dressed as a chupacabra." "But it's the truth," Kishin complained, before eyeing Kazama. "You tell her the truth." The teen trailed off, his mind not working properly. "I would like to, but I don't understand a heck of what it's going on." "Me neither," Kitsune added sheepishly. "Is this a family reunion?" "Of sorts," the flying dragoness mused before eyeing the humans there. Or more specifically, the alternate versions of Naruto there. "Oh, I guess that this incident may truly have been a mistake considering who was involved." She chuckled. "It will be rather amusing to see the boy's reaction to this. I see that many of you are wounded. My servant will attend to you." "Your servant?" Kishin squeaked, turning paler if possible. "You brought one of your guardians, Lady Suzushi." "Not all of them." The dragoness shook her head with a hint of amusement. "Only my container, Ghost, and that blonde apprentice of his."
The lizard was pissing himself. The second origin and the god of. The demon almost blurted out before looking around warily, almost as if checking to see if he was almost caught saying the worst thing possible. "I mean the cursed memory."
Kazama and Kitsune had no idea of who or what they were talking about, and silently agreed to shut up and wait to see what will happen. "Indeed." Suzushi nodded casually as she looked at one of her claws, inspecting them as if she had nothing better to do. And Ghost's apprentice as well.
So the rumors were true, he has taken another student, Kishan uttered ominously. A boy was said to have been traveling with your strongest servant recently. Gold of hair, eyes as blue as the deepest ocean, the mind of a cunning and morally deprived genius, and the physical and mental durability of one that could remain sane after staying with your servants for extended amounts of time. Kazama didn't know why, but he had the distinct feeling Zuzushi had cringed at the description. The physical description is accurate, his endurance is also rather remarkable for a human, but his intelligence is more. He is a moron, isn't he? The world wanderer guessed.
Not as much as that as he is impulsive and somewhat cunning, the dragoness nodded sadly. And loud. Very loud. Here is the great feral gale. Someone shouted before several figures landed right between the two demon entities. When the dust settled, a trio of humans was posing.
On one side was a woman teenage girl wearing a pink tank top, tan shorts and a very long-sleeved black trench coat, with long hair of the same color and emerald eyes. On the other stood a strange man in a white t-shirt, tan cargos and a short-sleeved black trench coat, with long brown hair tied in a ponytail and wearing black glasses. In the middle was the Great Ninja, a familiar teenager began, this time clad in a black short-sleeved sweater that had a stained spiral on the front with a long-sleeved white shirt underneath it. His hands were encased in what seemed to be fingerless furry gloves, but they could be gauntlets since the white shirt covered his arms. His shorts were tan and had many pockets, and he was wearing his head protector on his large collar, leaving his longer spiked hair to fall forward to shadow his slit eyes and slightly thicker whisker marks. The most badass ass kicker in this entire multiverse. The Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, and the future Hokage of Konoha. He smiled overconfidently at them all. Naruto Uzumaki. Wahahahaha. Ha ha ha. 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 The world wanderer paled in shock, as his new counterpart locked eyes with him, and dropped his jaw, quickly imitated by the other copies of them that were still conscious to see what was happening. What the fuck? They all wondered out loud, before the new Naruto's companions began to wail on him. Where the hell was our introduction, you selfish brat? The woman roared as she stomped on him. You, the most badass ass kicker in the multiverse. That's one of my titles, you retard. You think you're actually strong enough to take on the guy who taught you all the tricks you're currently famous for? The man shouted in rage as he pounded on the boy comically. Just give them a minute, the dragoness said to the others present, as a bead of sweat ran down the side of her head. They'll pay attention to the situation soon enough. The feral gale. Getting back up after his minor episode, the new blonde finally had time to think about his current situation. The boy had seen many things in the multiverse thanks to his master, eternally labeled in his mind as Arrow Knee, literally dragging him to wherever he felt like hanging out next. Monstrous angels, super-powered pirates, a demonic and bratty overlord, and many, many other strange creatures and people. But never once, never, did he have met, well, another himself.
Two, in fact.
Who are they? The youngest of the two asked. He was wielding Samahata, of all things. I don't, oh, screw this, the oldest replied. Are you enemies or allies? One of my friends really needs a healer. They are my servants, Zuzushi trailed off. And, technically, you're allies. Now that I am looking more at you, I must admit I'm surprised. I certainly didn't expect to see multiple alternate versions of Ghost's apprentice there. The dragoness locked eyes with Shadow. The blonde girl at my distant left has been poisoned by my cousin. You have treated demonic toxins before, so get to work.
Each of us lives, dependent and bound by our individual
Wait,
knowledge.
the immortal girl shouted. Before we go, she looked around and saw all the different versions of Naruto around. There are a lot of variants here, there's even a Naruto, she mused before turning to her male companion who had no doubt noticed the same thing. The immortals glared at one another for several seconds before she struck first. $50 says one of them is gay for Sasuke. She shouted quickly. Fuck. The male wearing sunglasses swore before relenting and shaking the girl's hand. No doubt he was against the odds in the bizarre bet. Lucky little, he grumbled under his breath as he walked away sulking. What? Blinked everyone else within hearing range of the two, clearly not knowing or wanting to understand what the odd pair was thinking about at the time. Shadow. Healing. Fairly important. Zuzushi spoke up with a clearly tired look in her eyes. Do it or I'll find more work for you to do. The girl's jaw clenched. Sadist, she muttered, before furiously eyeing the two other Naruto. You, follow me. Try anything stupid and I'm going to put a leash around your neck and make you my pets. Obey her, the feral Gale advised them hysterically. She actually did that to me once when I ate some candy in front of her. It sucked. The duo was apparently too stunned to say anything, but something, probably survival instinct, pushed them to obey the angry shadow. Ghost, Zuzushi began as she looked for her other servant. I want you to deal with that portal.
Did it?
Huh, the dragoness blinked, finding the man standing casually with his hands in his pockets right next to her. When? You're talking to the guy who is on top of the multiverse, a list of people gods most likely unable to fuck up the entirety of the space-time continuum. Remember, the man deadpanned. Of course I could tell that the portal was going to be trouble if it was left alone. I fixed it when you first popped up and spent all that time speaking to that demon guy there. Well, that's one major issue dealt with, the dragoness mused, as she eyed the demon lord. The creature almost pissed himself. But Lady Zuzushi, I am family. Surely you can be lenient. Even your guardians are known for their rules regarding their own kin. You have obviously not seen how they treat one another then. She scoffed. But, since you are nowhere close to being a truly arrogant, annoying, and ignorant pride-filled fool that many of our kin, I'm not going to erase you from existence. The demon seemed relieved, its white skin becoming purple. I will simply let my servants beat the crap out of you, kill you, and then allow you to reform in the Makai instead with your powers intact. Since your rank and power will remain, your reincarnation will take a long time, most likely several hundred years. Purple became white again.
You have 5 minutes to prepare. Heal yourself. Summon the help of whatever minor demons that are bound to your will. Whatever you need to slow down the inevitable, the dragoness declared as she lay down on a hill. After that, well, I am expecting for a good show to occur soon. Do not disappoint me.
The new Naruto turned to the strange man that came with him and looked at him with a tired expression, not paying attention to the fact that right behind him 3 clones of himself had appeared without any seals in a lotus position and began to meditate. He on the other hand made a dragon seal and held it while talking. You did this on purpose, didn't you? This is some trippy alternate world with even more alternate versions of me running around, isn't it? The master chuckled and scratched the back of his head. Actually, I'm not responsible for this, for once. He turned to see the demon lord tearing a massive temporary portal into the fabric of time and space, calling forth an army's worth of minor demons to aid him while frantically regenerating the damage he sustained earlier. So which one do you want? Tall, dark, and gingivitis, or the several thousand inbred rednecks of the netherworld? Remember, you probably won't have another chance to fight such an army, since demon lords can only use this summoning spell once in a century. The feral Gale raised an eyebrow. I have a choice. Scratch that, I actually have a shot at beating that guy. He's 12 feet tall and has armor as skin, for crying out loud. Didn't stop you from kicking the Sanbi's ass while barely relying on Sage Mode and none of the Kyuubi's chakra after getting chased down for several miles by Kisame and Itachi and pumping out exploding clones the entire time, the taller of the two shrugged. I summoned all 3 warrior toads and had Sasuke with me for that one, and after that I couldn't move for 2 weeks, the blonde frowned. Besides, this guy can actually think with an IQ above 30, I think. Ghost sighed. If you can feel his strong presence during a calm period and you can tell that he's generally within your ballpark, then you have nothing to worry about. It's the guys that can hide themselves completely while being absurdly strong that you need to worry about. Like you. The boy deadpanned. Ah, well shucks, now I feel embarrassed. The immortal swooned and giggled like a small girl. Naruto rolled his eyes. Fine, screw it. Give me the big one. If I wanted to fight against an army, I'd just go to an open area and make a ton of clones anyways. Plus, if this guy really was that strong, you'd already be hogging him for yourself. Fine by me, the master chuckled. Word of advice though, against this one it would be best to come out swinging. Your base level attacks without support won't do much against him. 30 seconds, the horse-sized dragon lying down on a nearby hill yawned. No kidding, I wouldn't have figured that with the multiple almost dead versions of me, one of them holding Samahata of all things, Zabuza, Haku, and Kakashi all lying around. The feral Gale rolled his eyes as he let his hands go. He looked around at something in the air that apparently was only visible to him and his master. You think this enough? If it isn't, you'll know soon enough. The man shrugged.
As always, you've proven yourself to be an inspiration to all who wish to be helpful to others. In the multiverse, Naruto sighed before standing absolutely still and closing his eyes. Within seconds, the skin on and around his eyelids were pigmented red, the same as the clones sitting behind him.
8 seconds, the man mused. You've cut your time by a few more seconds again, I see. Not bad. Still trying to get to the 5-second marks, the smirking boy chuckled darkly as he cracked his knuckles by flexing them and showing off his slightly elongated canines. You know, to match that fucking annoying technique Nagato uses and all. He opened his eyes to show that his pupils were now slit sideways now as well as colored gold, much like a toad's. Time, Zuzushi stated with finality, looking to see Kishin fully recovered and standing, albeit a bit nervously if the small twitch in his eyebrow and tail were any indication, in front of an army 10,000 demons strong. Well then, what are you two waiting for? Blow something up already. Attack! Kishin roared hysterically, no doubt because in his mind if his army and himself did so with all their might he might have a chance to survive.
A half a second later, Ghost had virtually warped past the giant demon in an insane show of speed, and was now laughing like a small child at an amusement park with a black and white short sword in each hand, one of which was hilt deep into the eye of a cyclops that was already dead and falling backwards, before jumping forward, being trailed by the creatures spraying blood, and casually slaying the demon lord's flunkies, one by his in-game.
Despite his impressive initial burst to get to the army, the man was now moving almost slowly as he ducked and weaved between skeletons, ogres, devils, and other members of the army, cutting them down with almost lazy attacks that seemed like any human could have done if they had enough experience, stamina, and a fast enough reaction time. Ha ha ha, swing, swing, as fast as you can. You can't catch me, I'm the crazy blind man. He taunted as he ducked in between an ogre's legs while cutting its tendons before jumping on his back and stabbing a vital point before spinning low on one foot to dodge an attack from behind that would have decapitated him and gutted the possessed human in front of him. As he attacked, he also hopped back to avoid being crushed by another ogre's club before jumping on the weapon and then stabbing the beast in the face and through the brain. It appeared that the monster's body would collapse on top of the man, but apparently he had put enough force into the attack to cause the beast to fall backwards, and as it did so he used it as a platform to jump deeper into the army to have more fun. What sort of? Kishin growled, both irritated and confused. What is he thinking? Probably that you weren't dumb enough to turn your back on an unoccupied enemy, grunted an irritated and significantly less bright and sunny feral Gale about the demon's eye level with a fist cocked back. Before the demon lord could respond, the boy's fist collided with his head, and the significantly taller of the two was launched back several dozen feet from the blow. TCH. Great. All power and no freaking experience, the boy grunted with focused eyes as he watched the beast get up again. At least he looks like he can take a hit.
I was foolish to forget about you, boy. I see that your master is confident enough in your abilities to leave me to you. Kishin growled as he picked himself up and spat out a tooth. Your alternate selves were rather tricky, even though they were weak. No doubt you will be stronger given who you travel with.
The monster's wings stretched out and he began to fly into the air, never taking his eyes off of his young-looking opponent as he gained altitude. I will have to fight with my strengths against you, he smirked as he breathed in deeply, obviously about to breathe out fire again. The blonde on the other hand just chuckled as he made a dragon seal again and focused a small amount on the chakra he had infused with the air around him, a technique that not only served as a method of absolute air manipulation, but also served as a sort of extrasensorial perception as well. It was called the seventh sense, and using it Naruto was currently manipulating the air around the demon's wings so that the monster wouldn't be able to fly. Just about now. The moment Kishin was about to attack, the lift provided by its wings disappeared instantly. As such, the flames that he was originally going to use to attack the boy now served as his new form of propulsion, a far more unstable form of propulsion if the uncontrolled and completely random path of flight the demon was taking along with the panicked screaming was any indication. It was rather comical for everyone watching as he crashed headfirst into his army and blew up a good number of his soldiers in a rather impressive green mushroom cloud. Naruto couldn't help but chuckle. Hehehe. Wow, I wonder if it will be that funny when I do that to Deidara. A loud roar of rage calmed him down again as he saw many weak members of the army between him and the crash zone getting blown away by some massive force heading straight towards him. I guess warm-ups are over, the human fighter smirked as an elaborate blade of wind chakra extended from each his wrists to almost a meter in length. Round 1. The huge foe had cleared his army and was now rushing towards his prey with a massive intent to kill. The blonde in turn matched that intent with his own, making the air around him and far beyond alive with his will, becoming his savage ally and weapon that could strike from all angles at his command.
Fight.
The were fox, Kitsune. So, the mysterious young woman, apparently named Shadow, began, as they advanced toward Haku and Naruto. Which one of you wants to screw Sasuke?
I don't know what you're talking about, Kazama replied. I don't even know who you are, or what is going on.
I will explain everything once you are all able to listen so I don't have to repeat myself, she replied before an uncomfortable grin made its way onto her face. But first things first, which one of you is lusting after Sasuke? There is no way that there would be so many alternate versions of yourself in one place and not have at least one of you lusting for the duck butt. I can't care less about Sasuke, the teen affirmed. Right now, I only care about my friends. Go help Naruto, I'll bring the others while you do that. And then he left for the place where Kakashi had been recovering.
You? Shadow asked as she locked eyes with Kitsune.
I killed him, the boy replied ominously, the memories of the Uchiha's brutal murder at the behest of the voices rushing through his mind. And I ever only loved Hinata.
Oh. Okay then. The girl blinked before giving them a sadistic, false smile. Clearly, she was not at all disturbed or surprised with the boy's first statement. Then I assume it's Naruto. No, Kitsune said, while shivering. And definitely not Shibaku either. The guy was a closet pervert, no matter how hard he was trying to deny it. Sorry, but you lost your bet.
Shadow's expression became terrifying. It was some kind of mix between imminent rage, sulking, and nervous breakdown. Out of 4 different Naruto, she muttered ominously. None of you have a Sasuke-centric sexuality. How? That's a statistical anomaly.
The blonde didn't say anything, waiting for the woman to explode in anger. But instead, she locked eyes with Kitsune. You have a crush on Sasuke. No. You have a crush on Sasuke, she ordered. You were stalking him since you were 9, and you are lusting after Itachi on the side, and hide handmade dolls of them, both under your bed back, in Konoha. Ghost mustn't know I've lost, so you better repeat this story until you believe it. Either you pretend to have a crush on Sasuke, or I'm going to castrate you. Kitsune opened his mouth, and then closed it. Just heal Naruto, and I'll do whatever you want. Well, you're no fun. I expected at least an effort to fight back there. The woman pouted almost disappointedly before giving him a slightly more serious gaze. At least your care for your friends is consistent. I can respect that. Traveling a small distance, they finally reached the wounded girl, and Haku eyed Shadow suspiciously. Who's this? The ice user asked with caution. The elder female simply snorted as she walked right up to the poisoned girl's other side, and began to rummage through her coat. Let me treat her, and she'll be jumping around and everything in less than a minute.
The younger girl locked eyes with Kitsune for confirmation and got a hesitant nod in return. That was all she needed to prompt her to slowly move back and watch what happened next.
Let's see. Demonic-based decay, themed poisoning, and a giant hole in the gut. Pretty deadly, but not untreatable, the woman muttered to herself as she inspected her patient. I'm not on the old man's level of healing, but fortunately I got ways around that limitation. She grinned as pulled out an empty bottle from her coat. Before anyone could ask what she was doing, the woman placed one of her hands over the open top of the container, and various materials began to suddenly fall down from her palm into it. Red, black, green, and fluids of indescribable colors and textures filled the container in various amounts for a short amount of time before the bottle was filled. Then, as if the container doubled as a blender, the contents began to spin rapidly for a few seconds before coming to a complete halt and turning into a pure gold substance. The woman posed with the glowing jar immaturely. Ta-da! I just created a universal tonic made of a delicate and highly experimental composition of Wolverine's cells, medication for an Evangelion, and the blood of a baby dragon. She then forced the bleeding and semi-conscious Naruto to drink the substance. I have no idea what it tastes like, but this should theoretically work. Thanks for offering your services. Wait. Theoretically, Kitsune shouted worriedly as the fluid went down his friend's throat. The blonde girl coughed and woke up completely as a good amount of the potion went down the wrong tube. Despite the rough feeding of the elixir, though the results were almost instant, immediately Naruto's wounds began to heal quickly, and she regained some measure of consciousness. What happened? She asked to the group, before widening her eyes and getting up. The demon. Ghost and his minion are taking care of it, Shadow declared, as sounds of explosions resonated not far from them. Off in the distance, the family could see a black blur destroying countless minor demons left and right, while several blonde figures were either blasting out high-level wind techniques or making the biggest Rasengan that any of them had ever seen. Don't worry. Other than some friendly fire, you aren't in any danger at all. Some? A voice wondered, as a powerful blast of green fire passed near them. Kazama had returned, helping a wounded Kakashi walk. Shibaku and Zabuza were following them, the first supporting Sasori's damaged top, and the second struggling to keep his balance with the help of his damaged blade. That's a bit of an understatement, the teen observed. The landscape is burning.
Some, Shadow repeated. Believe me, they can do far more damage. Ghost is perhaps the strongest the entity in the whole multiverse, and his blonde copy of you guys is already so strong that he's taken Gaara, the Sanbi, and the container of the Gobi out already. The group frowned, and the raven-haired girl raised an eyebrow. You're not surprised. Normally the people of your worlds tend to be a bit caught off guard by learning that.
We have already met someone able to kill Bijou, Shibaku muttered ominously. We even fought him, or to be more exact, were beaten by him.
The woman muttered, clearly more curious than surprised by this supposedly outrageous fact. Was it a ninja? They all nodded. Fuck. Wonder who the hell managed to get that big of a power boost. I mean, our brat's version of Madara has other half of the QB in him, but still he shouldn't be able to actually truly kill a spiritual entity with that much power. Kitsune frowned as he observed the battle raging between Kishin and the self-proclaimed feral Gale. The boy this time had just made a massive rune sword composed of solid wind chakra out of his arms that was at least 10 times the size of the monster he was fighting and was about to deal some serious damage to the already wounded demon lord.
The monster managed to barely get out of the way of the attack, which seemingly had no trouble tearing through the earth and creating tremendous torrents of wind in its wake, which in turn scratched and blew back the creature in the process. Kishin managed to regain his bearing, however, rode the jet stream as it continued to scratch his body relentlessly, and countered with a fire attack that was more akin to unleashing a sea at the boy, rather than a simple blast.
In turn, the boy managed to weave multiple seals at a rate that matched Kakashi's and created a thick black wall of rock to block the attack. Despite the overwhelming power of the Green Inferno, the wall somehow managed to do the impossible and split the sea into two streams that flooded outwards away from him. Had the Watchers not been safe on the hill situated to the side of the battle, they would have without a doubt been killed in the backlash as anything caught in the path of the Emerald Sea was immolated without a trace. The grass that covered the earth went up so quickly that no one had a chance to see it burn, and the trees that littered the area turned into giant vertical stalks of burning charcoal. The very idea that the Blonde's wall had managed to hold up against such an attack and even divide it into two streams was nothing short of absurd. Yet despite the severity of the situation, the boy surprisingly enough did nothing more about it as he was surrounded on most sides by the green flames and instead casually crossed his arms and leaned back against the wall as if he was napping. Kishin saw that his attack wasn't doing anything soon enough and stopped trying to melt it reluctantly by shutting his mouth with a large clack. Growling angrily, the beast attempted to maintain his distance and shoot several of his tail darts at the structure to see if it was strong enough to take a physical attack, but much to his surprise halfway through the projectile's flight path they all veered in odd directions and missed the target completely. To most people the feat wouldn't have been that interesting if it weren't for the fact that each spike tore up the earth a great deal when it landed. By the time all the spikes had stopped, there were at least half a dozen trenches that could easily hide a platoon of men spread out in several directions. Holy crap, you suck at this. The kid behind the wall laughed loudly and naturally, as if what he just saw was the funniest thing he had ever seen. How the hell were you made a demon general with aiming like that?
Finally losing enough control over his temper to realize that his next decision was probably a bad one, Kishin let loose a savage roar and charged forward at the structure in front of him, attempting to plow through it with his bare claws and get to the source of his frustration. However, this indeed turned out to be the wrong move, as somehow the blonde on the other side of the wall could tell what the hell it was doing. By the time the lizard had reached the wall, he was hammered by another massive Rasengan, even bigger than the demon that plowed through the structure that he was going to destroy.
It did not surprise many when the ball exploded loudly and launched the very wounded demon very far in the opposite direction he was traveling just moments before.
This version of the kid is ridiculous, Zabuza grunted, probably remembering how easily he and his allies were taken out at once by the monster. He turned to the newcomers. "Who the hell are you?"
Shadow's response was a large smirk, one that chilled Kitsune to the bone. "Me, I am the second origin, the voice of Zuzushi, the ruler of shadows, one of the true gods, and one of the strongest beings in the multiverse, but you can just call me." Her smile widened. "Shadow, your Biju, if you have them, must know who I am." The minions nearly shit himself when I talked to him for the first time.
There was a long silence, and then,
"Never heard of you," Chibaku said sheepishly, making Shadow fall on the ground comically. "Yeah, my Kyuubi has no idea of who you are either," Naruto added.
Kitsune himself had no idea of what the voices were thinking, and honestly didn't care. "Sorry, but..." "No, sorry," she snapped, red with childish rage. "I'm a freaking legend. The container of the sky, mother. I freaking kick God's asses when I hit that time of the month. Dude, where's my respect?" Everyone dropped their jaw at the outburst. She pointed her finger at the creature that had identified herself as Zuzushi. "That is the Sky Mother, granddaughter of the first dragon, one of the oldest demons ever." A god so ancient that most gods don't remember what he looks like. And an existence that is so ambiguous that it is beyond your, and still my, comprehension and ability to pronounce correctly? Gods and other worldly beings tend to scream like small children when she shows up without warning. And then, she pointed at her brother, who was still manually stabbing each and every demon he came across in the face, without issue, as if the activity was natural as breathing. That's Ghost, the cursed memory. The only mortal-based being in the multiverse able to beat Suzushi without help. Hell, he's practically the apocalypse incarnate. Last time I checked, the other gods were still spreading propaganda about that. She glared at the Arashi clan. How can you not have heard of us? I thought all high-ranking demons were supposed to have some sort of links to their world's gods and other mutaversal information sources. Ethereal existences are worse gossips than elderly British women. This shouldn't be new news.
You didn't create the universe, nobody did.
The woman looked sideways dangerously and locked eyes with a fearful Chibaku. Come again? At the dawn of time, he muttered, there was only emptiness. Darkness were ruling in absolute control and order. But in a one brief instant, chaos came in the form of the movement of yin and yo, positive and negative, shattering the darkness control forever, giving birth to life and action, to matter and existence, to the kami. The boy continued stubbornly. And in the end, to humanity, he smirked. No god created the universe, it only came into being by itself, and then created the kami. At least, that is what the Kyuubi says, he quickly added as Shadow gritted her teeth. Same thing with my own, Naruto declared. Gods are only inventions of man, it says. Bullshit, Shadow cursed darkly. I'm actually connected to the beginning. So much so that in some circles I am actually considered another source, for all there is that has yet to come. There's no way what you said is right, unless. Her eyes narrowed as her mind went down a series of thought processes. No, that would be impossible. But if your absolute power is an unknown factor instead of... She looked around with a sharp look in her eyes, absent of any of her childish demeanor that she had before. Which one of you is responsible for this mess? Kazama frowned. I am...
How did you tear space apart? Did you create a large enough fourth-dimensional resonance that reality temporarily deconstructed and reconstructed itself into a wormhole phenomena, or are you able to push and influence fifth-dimensional flows enough that you can jump? Obviously you aren't using a subtle approach, or this clusterfuck here wouldn't be happening in the first place. She rapidly inquired, spewing out multiple scientific terms as she stared at him analytically before pausing and shaking her head. No, never mind. We'll talk shop later when things calm down a bit. There are still a few almost dead ones here after all.
Not bothering to watch the woman heal Kakashi and Zabuza, Kitsune stared at the battle in the distance. He was impressed. The counterpart and the demon had forgone elemental warfare, and were now just attempting to kill one another manually. Normally one would think that this would be fairly simple for the demon, since he was literally over twice the size of his opponent.
But that didn't seem to be the case, as the smaller of the two seemed to control the fight completely.
They watched as the boy stepped inside the beast's guard when it tried to swipe him with one of his monstrous claws, and used its attempt to knee him with his tree trunk-sized legs as leverage to rapidly gain height until he was right in front of the demon's face and blew a raspberry into the creature's eyes.
For a moment it looked like the fight was over for the boy when Kishin attempted to crush him in between his massive claws, causing a loud boom that could be heard and felt by everyone there. However, at the last moment the blonde somehow managed to suddenly push himself back out of the monster's reach and hover just outside of his massive claws. Oddly enough, despite being so close to the source of the minor explosion, he did not seem fazed in the slightest, if the confident grin on his face was any indication. The assault didn't end there though, as the hands in front of the demon's face opened to reveal Kishin in the process of breathing out another massive torrent of flames at point-blank range, but the boy once again somehow moved in midair without any sign that he was going to, though not unmarred, as his left arm got slightly scorched by the fire that he barely dodged. This time the boy dashed in a circular motion to find himself behind his opponent, missing the attack that continued forward, taking out another good portion of the army he had summoned and torching half of a nearby mountain in the process. Still, Kishin was not a demon lord due to strength alone. He had been caught from behind enough times to develop a natural reaction to an enemy there, and it was shown as his barbed tail almost instinctively whipped to attack the foe to his 6. Unfortunately for Kishin, his opponent was far stronger and more durable than the majority of the demons he had encountered in his life, as the blonde actually caught the massive tail. Skidding back a few dozen feet from the blow before stopping, the boy gave no sign of slowing down his counterasso and gave the demon a severe case of whiplash as he spun the beast around his head and displaying monstrous strength before slamming him onto the ground with enough force to crack the earth several times over. Not stopping there, the blonde kept up the assault and conjured up several dozen clones that jumped up into the air. Each of the copies then created a massive wind blade above their heads by clasping their hands together before pointing them all down, and nailed the beast into the earth, causing it to roar in rage and pain that could clearly be heard by anyone in a 10-mile radius of the event. The original stood to the side and watched Kishin with what the observers could only assume was a contemplative look before sighing to himself and slowly and somewhat shakily, rising up into the sky until he was several dozen meters above his opponent. While the execution wasn't that impressive, it didn't help distract the others from realizing that the person in front of them was actually flying. As if that wasn't enough, the boy then held out his arm and grabbed it with another and began to channel a massive amount of chakra to it. Slowly a massive Rasengan appeared in his hand, but there was something different about it. It began to emit a high-pitched shrieking sound. It was powerful. It was terrifying. It was unstable and blew up in the user's face with a blast that could be felt by everyone, launching him a good distance away and forcing him to hit the earth hard. Log damn it. The watchers heard the teen yell in obvious irritation as he picked himself out of the crater his body had made. I had it. I fucking had it that time. I was so close to using it one-handed in the field. Gah. They blinked in confusion as the boy jumped into the air with rage and flew to his previous spot above the now struggling and raging demon. Unlike last time though, the boy made a clone that floated in the air next to him before once more conjuring up the massive Rasengan. However, the clone seemed to be helping by adding wind chakra, Kazama muttered in confusion. A two-person technique. But he already used a clone to make Rasengan. The teen's eyes widened as he realized what was off about what he just said. This version of didn't need a clone in order to make Rasengan or any of the larger versions. Did this mean that stably adding an element to it would require another clone to perform? Does that mean that it is possible to reach that level himself just by mastering the element and using another clone in the process? He was broken out of his musings when he saw the sphere grow larger and larger with what seemed like a rapidly spinning rotor of blades around the ball, shrieking with power and intensity. He could feel the wind from where he was, and without a doubt the traveler could tell that the demon recognized that this was a finishing move. The ball was as large as the boy now as he held it above his head, and each blade was nearly 5 times the length of the diameter of the ball. The wind was so severe near the boy that the beginnings of a small twister were taking form around him, fueled by the monstrous technique. Wind release. Rasenshuriken. The powerful variant cried as he actually threw the massive spinning disc straight at the frantically struggling demon. Incredible. That was the only way that Kitsune could describe the explosion and storm that was created from the technique once it struck the demon and was set off, unleashing all the energy that had until then been focused into the form it had been in. The discharge had even taken the shape of a massive contained sphere, but despite the light it gave off, the watchers could still see everything inside of it get torn and ripped to shreds piece by piece. The blonde could see the roaring silhouette of Kishin in the middle of the sphere disintegrate right in front of him before the wind the attack kicked up reached him, and he had to cover his eyes or risk getting blinded. They had only bothered to risk looking again when the air had calmed and the noise had finally died down. What met their eyes was their counterpart was standing, albeit a bit winded, in the middle of a massive crater where Kishin had previously been pinned down. He is so strong, Kitsune whispered in disbelief. Kazama nodded. Yeah, he is. Stronger than all of us. Then he scowled. This power should have been ours. Something in the teen's gaze chilled Kitsune to the bone. They were so focused on their counterparts' display, none of them noticed that the summoned army of demons suddenly gets slashed to minuscule pieces in a single instant, and their remains disintegrate into dust in the wind in the next. All that remained was the supposed immortal man that had been fighting them, yawning widely and standing unharmed. The puppet master, Sasori. So, let's see if I got this right. The Feral Gale, another stupid nickname, in Sasori's humble opinion said, you are, like us, a group of dimensional travelers, and like us, you have been forced into insane adventures and fight against really powerful beings. Unlike my end, though, you have no idea what you are doing, what is going on, and so far have had no one to give you all the details on why this is happening. Unfortunately, Kazama replied. They had, after the events on the plains, entered the village Kishin had attempted to destroy to begin his conquest of ruling this dimension. After reserving the whole terrace of a restaurant with the money of the one called Ghost, much to his dismay, the whole group, including Zuzushi, had sat and ordered for food. Obviously the presence of the latter had scared just about everyone except the cook and the waitresses away. This was obviously not a place that hosted many supernatural creatures. Not that Sasori really cared. Chibaku was currently helping him rebuild his body, much to the waitress's horror, and he had listened to the discussion with utmost concentration. He had too, since these people were apparently to him what the puppeteer was to ants. 3 Uchiha Madara, Ghost muttered. That blows. One's bad enough for you guys given your current levels, but 3, and one of them has the Rinnegan, and another a Biju killing technique. Talk about overkill. He smirked. Reminds me of the time I messed with Aizen, Sephiroth, and Darkseid at the same time. Ah, good times. Who are you talking about? Kakashi asked, voicing everyone's thoughts. No one of importance, Ghost shrugged, as he devoured a small cake. What is more important is how the hell did you ended up here? More importantly, how you managed to open a permanent portal to one of the fiendish plane by accident, just like that. But of course, he smirked, Shadow is taking care of figuring that out. Does it hurt, boss? Naruto asked, concerned about her elder's current situation. Kazama shook his head. I have been in worse situations before. Well, Sasori certainly didn't doubt about that. The teen was surprisingly calm for someone strapped on a table, without a shirt, and having his belly examined by a raven-haired woman who was apparently not so interested in his well-being. If the puppeteer hadn't known better, he would have seen the scene as some kind of sadomasochist relationship, or something worse. And, honestly, it's not really unpleasant, he added, as Shadow touched his skin, as long as you ignore the fact that everyone is watching you. Zuzushi snorted as she tore into a slab of meat. Believe me, it happens more often than one would think. But generally there is blood involved. The Feral Gale nodded as if there was nothing wrong with what he just said. Still, I wonder what you went through if you actually somewhat enjoy this situation. I mean with Ero ni. What happens in kinky sex time with Anko and Hana stays in kinky sex time with Anko and Hana. Ghost shouted with authority. And forevermore I will knock on doors before I enter someone's room. The strongest blonde there shivered, traumatized by his memories. Let's just say that having Orochimaru break your seal while you are in the middle of a transformation is a little more painful. Kazama sighed, resigging himself to the fact that his new friends were more than a bit touched in the head. A good thing that Sarutobi killed him in our world then. Second time's the charm. Ghost shrugged before turning to his sister. You should feel yourself lucky, brat. The last time she was so focused on a man's belly was when she was with her ex, shit. Zuzushi raised her eyebrows in horror, the Feral Gale paled dramatically, and Shadow did nothing. Obviously whatever the man had just said was taboo. The cursed memory began to shiver. She's not responding. 'Tis a bad omen. Normally a slip would leave me absolutely annihilated, Zuzushi suggested. Maimed and ripped to shreds, several times. His apprentice added. Yeah, something like that. The master laughed nervously before turning to Kazama. Damn kid, your seal must be one hell of a clusterfuck on your gut if she's so focused that she didn't hear me. Sasori frowned. Care to elaborate? Believe me, you're better off not knowing, Ghost laughed. Unless you want to share the pain I'm bound to suffer soon, it's better not to ask. Silence. So, Haku trailed off. You are, if I understand well, the equivalent of gods. Sort of, the man replied. We are members of the Ubikari clan, or well, that's what we're calling ourselves for now. We're monstrously powerful humans that are further boosted by Zuzushi, making us, sort of human-shaped deities tasked to keep her company and reign her and if she does something stupid. Zuzushi, on the other hand, is a monstrously powerful goddess, the creator of the multiverse. He raised his hand as Chibaku and Naruto opened their mouths, and it has already been proven. I don't know what your Kyuubi are talking about, but they are either lying or ignorant of the truth. But, what is exactly the multiverse? Kakashi asked. We journeyed through it without really understanding what it is. Sasori was immediately all ears, much like the rest of the Arashi clan. Basically, if a single universe is like a tale, then the multiverse would be accurately described as multiple tales that run along one another without intersecting most of the time, like a giant library of stories, the godlike man explained. It doesn't stop there though, as each story can have multiple, if not infinite variants which also qualify as their own individual universe. The immortal paused and looked around to see that only roughly half of his audience was actually getting the full picture. Okay, let me put it in a different way. Imagine that the history of the world is one that is narrated orally. Everyone that listens to it will then narrate his own version, with some modifications. It can vary from details to whole plot twists to an outright different tale with another conclusion, and none of the characters are the same, but the core fact is that they are always different from everyone else's. Each universe is a version of one reality consisting of one of these stories, and they are all different in one way or another. Basically, it all boils down to the ever-present, what if? What if? Sasori asked, beginning to understand. What if a rock had fallen on this person's head? What if a doctor had chosen to become an artist instead? What if a god had chosen another person as his champion? What if someone had lifted his finger while sleeping? What if you guessed true on a test instead of false? The list continues on indefinitely. He smirked. Basically, for each possibility and chain of possibilities that can possibly exist, a new world is created. And as there are many, many tales in existence, each with their own variants, Zuzushi continued. The end result is an infinite number of different tales, each with an infinite number of variations, and they all form a great tapestry we call the multiverse. One that I take all credit for making, thank you very much. So, Chibaku trailed off. To put it simply, we're all like characters from a tale escaping from our version and inviting ourselves into another. Like us, Ghost confirmed. We are like, living, self-aware pieces of a chess game inviting ourselves onto one chessboard, and introducing randomness and the unknown factors to an otherwise completely ordered and planned game to make a new variant. We are immune to fate, or the people that move and influence the other pieces, and thus its worst enemies. He paused before grumbling to the side about fate being an ugly-ass bitch and not leaving him alone. Cool, Chibaku muttered. That's awesome. Naruto shouted. Naruto Uzumaki, the multiverse's most surprising and unpredictable ninja of all times. Haku, Kitsune and Kazama grinned sheepishly at that, but Sasori only frowned. I assume it's not always a good thing. Of course not. Ghost snorted. When you screw with fate, anything can happen. A hero's planned death can be averted, but a bastard's awaited defeat can also be prevented by accident as well. You have to remember that even though that there are multiple worlds and themes, literally anything can still happen, both pleasant and not. Thankfully my family has had enough experience that we know what the hell we're doing now so that we can keep clusterfucks to a minimum, but trust me on this, things have still gone horrifically wrong on us more than we'd like to admit. He smiled sadly. Believe me, it really sucks when you have tried really hard to help someone you actually like, and instead accidentally not only caused his death, and the death of just about everyone, but you wound up saving some evil overlord asshole who then proceeded to take over the reality you were trying to save. It would be indeed be crushing, to see a lifetime's worth of effort being all for naught, Sasori thought. It's exactly what I had felt when the Sandame had broken my dreams. But anyway, the cursed memory continued, turning to Kazama again. From what I've pieced together, your story isn't so different than the one of my apprentice, though with a few key differences. Orochimaru and the Akatsuki are still doing their thing, Jinchuriki are still treated like crap, and the Civilian Council and Danzo are still out for your blow. This is mostly true, except the last part, Sasori interrupted. There is no Civilian Council, and Danzo is not so hostile, or at least our information doesn't indicate he is. Many clan heads, like Hiyashi Hyuga and Shikaku Nara, are the masterminds behind a conspiracy targeting the Kyuubi's vessels. Both Ghost and the Feral Gale raised their eyebrows, with different degrees of surprise. Hinata's dad. The new Naruto wondered. Well, I did say there were differences, the cursed memory muttered, before looking at his disciple. Don't worry, they aren't bastards at your home. Pretty nice guys, when we aren't screwing with them at least, and so long as we keep Crypt away from them. Kazama didn't seem to agree, but kept his mouth shut, for a short moment. By the way, how did you end up helping my counterpart? Ghost grinned. Well, it all started when I teleported into his soul while being drunk out of my skull. Everyone dropped their jaw, well, except Shadow, Zuzushi and the feral Gale. The first didn't even react, the second smirked, and the third grinned sheepishly, completely embarrassed. What? Well, in case you haven't understood yet, Shadow is a bit bipolar, Ghost chuckled. I made a joke on her weight. He briefly stared at the girl, who was still ignoring him, and ran the fuck away, escaping to another dimension when she cornered me. Long story short, I ended up interrupting a Biju extracting process, with Naruto in the middle. I was pretty much dead because of Danzo's betrayal at the last second, and Akatsuki ended up capturing me. The feral Gale continued darkly. Arrow ni, Chibaku raised an eyebrow at the nickname, then used his powers to make us jump back in time, and helped me avert many future tragedies while training me. I may look like I'm 14, but mentally I'm closer to 18. He paused before glaring at Kazama. I miss being tall, damn it. Under normal circumstances, Sasori would have said that time travel was physically impossible, but since it was a deity or someone as close as you could be that was talking, it was probably the truth. Finished. Everyone stared at Shadow, who leaned back into her chair and began compulsively eating the pile of candy in front of her. I'm going to devour the whole restaurant's reserve. No, the whole town's, she muttered to herself before locking eyes with Kazama. Congrats, mister, I stole the power of a god. You can officially warp reality to the 5th dimension, and if you can't yet change the way the world is pieced together, then you will soon. Silence. The girl continued to eat, apparently unconcerned with the current situation. Care to explain? Ghost asked curiously. Other than you being able to create on the 7th dimension and me being able to destroy on that level, I don't think I've heard of anyone with the ability to accidentally get anything that screws around with the fabric of reality above the 4th. The kid has drained a part of Death's power, Shadow explained before eyeing the travelers lazily. You all know that the Shinigami is responsible for the creation of the seal, right? Well, apparently, in this kid's particular multiverse, the Shini. Multiverse. Ghost blinked, surprised. Shit, that explains a lot. Yeah, you heard that right. They don't come from our multiverse, but from another, the woman commented. Sasori blinked, and he wasn't the only one. Zuzushi's eyes narrowed. That makes sense. There are infinite multiverses in existence that share common phenomena much in the same way that alternate realities do so, however traveling between that particular gap is rather uncommon. I just happen to be one of the few entities that is capable of manifesting a multiverse, however I am not conceited enough to actually believe I am the only one able to do so, nor do I doubt that some may have manifested by sheer chance, I just never bothered to look around to look for others. It does sound crazy, Shadow continued, but just as there are an infinite number of variations of one universe, there are an infinite number of variations of the multiverse where some deepest core rules are different as well. What if the Shinto creation myth were correct? What if Zuzushi wasn't the one that created the multiverse? What if no god had created the multiverse? What if a godlike maniac had succeeded in annihilating the multiverse? Etc., etc. The base foundation of simultaneous balanced energy, physical, and temporal manifestation can be pretty finicky at times, so it does make sense theoretically. Naruko bit her lip. I haven't understood everything. Me too, Kitsune pointed out. I don't care, Shadow replied. Now, can you just shut your mouths and let me finish my explanation? Her tone indicated to everyone that refusal to obey would have deadly consequences, so everyone fell silent. Again, the general version of your universe's Shinigami in our multiverse is, well, not weak, but simply incompetent at his job, Shadow continued, and while he did make a seal as strong as your own, there were some small complications, although that may have been another what-if scenario. The Shinigami of your multiverse, which is what your universe's version is a fragment of, is first, far more powerful than ours, and is more importantly constantly powering the seals, holding back the Kyuubi instead of simply slapping down the mark, twisting the rules of time and space with the seal to do the hard work for him, putting in a bit of power to keep everything in place, and calling it a day, which is what ours did. She looked at all the blondes in the room. This goes for all of your seals, and it completely prevents the Kyuubi from tearing it apart or controlling its container. But when Orochimaru twisted your seal, he created an imbalance within it. She sighed, and eyed Kazama. From what I can tell, your Kyuubi had more or less passed half of its chakra through the seal in your fight, and a good lot of its mind as well. But the shit hit the fan when Orochimaru closed it literally on top of all that power. It created an unstable void inside the seal, one that had to be filled. So the seal, to stay in place, acted like a pump, and filled the void with the only energy it had a full access to, the Shinigami's power. She touched the seal. Then, your parents managed to fix the seal while it was still draining the god's power and open it up again to pull back the rest of your demon's juice. This sent the Kyuubi's chakra back into the seal, inadvertently causing a massive feedback and overload. This in turn forced the Kyuubi's chakra that the seal had been slammed closed upon to rage around into the very foundations of the seal itself, messing with it even more. The woman stretched and leaned back into her chair with a tired sigh. In the end, despite the odds of it literally blowing you up with both demonic and god-based power, it managed to regain its stability by adapting its form with the Ondaimi's help, but this time, the locations of the energies inside you had been reversed. The Kyuubi's chakra is now powering the seal holding back the Shinigami's essence. Shadow then touched one of the 9 circles with a spiral inside. These 9 drawings are the sealed tails of the Kyuubi, who has been reduced to a state of mindless chakra. The I is the trapped Shinigami's essence. She smirked. Your seal isn't a transportation device. It's a filter that prevents the formidable energy kept behind it from overwhelming and consuming you, much like the original seal did for the Kyuubi. The cursed memory nodded in comprehension. Makes sense. It's unlikely as hell, but it does sound logical. Explains the strange void in your soul that I sensed earlier too. Anyway, Shadow coughed. The basic functions of the seal are still there, it's just what is kept inside has changed. It still has the functions: tap in the power when the wielder is in danger, or tap in it if the wielder wants it. Kazama, meanwhile, had gone pale. You mean that teleporting between worlds is simply one of the Shinigami's many abilities that you are instinctively using by channeling the power kept in the seal because it is the easiest to control, Shadow confirmed, before beginning to eat another chocolate bar. But since you aren't born with it, your hold over it is fragile. The more you are using it in short succession, the more the seal assumes you're in danger, the more it taps into the power, and the more your transportation becomes hazardous. When you tried to escape from this Sharingan forest, you pulled out so much power that instead of jumping into an alternate universe, you teleported in another multiverse, badly damaging the fabric of reality in the process. She swallowed her food, and opening an unstable yet still permanent side portal between this reality and a fiendish plane, aka hell. The girl smirked. You should consider yourself very lucky. You might have created a black hole instead, or fused this plane with hell, or even destroyed them both altogether. She gave the boy a cold and unwavering glare. Listen well, kid. You must never, and I say never, use your power when it is not safe to do so, or else the consequences would be cataclysmic for you and the world around you. A pot containing ink and a brush appeared out of nowhere. I'm gonna make another seal for you that will act as a timer, indicating how much time it will take for you before your current seal is ready to allow you to safely travel. How much will I have to wait, approximately? Kazama asked curiously. Depends, she replied with a careless shrug. It can go from a few hours to days. It's quite difficult, since most of the seal's working is still a bit mixed up from the initial breakdown, even to me. My brother Crypt could have probably found the pattern, stabilized it, and given you a pretty sweet upgrade, but he's off doing who knows what right now. She sighed. Damn freaking idiot and his obsession with the floor. Sasori scowled. If jumping into different worlds in quick succession is now impossible, then Madara is going to track us down sooner than we all expected. Kazama finished. The teen stared at the self-proclaimed Ugakari clan. Can you help us deal with them? Ghost's expression immediately told Sasori that the answer was going to be negative. Shadow briefly blinked, and Zuzushi had frowned. No, the dragoness declared. It was not a decision. It was a fact. Why? The teen asked vehemently, the rest of his group staring at the scene silently. You are out of my jurisdiction, the deity replied. Under normal circumstances, I would have gladly aided you, since your enemies seem to be quite the challenge and interesting fight. But as long as they haven't put a foot in my multiverse, they are not my problem. If I were to go into your multiverse, whatever pantheon ruling it could interpret it as an attempted invasion and respond with force. It could easily end up escalating to a cosmic war, or worse, bring the attention of alien evil deities upon us all, possibly as strong as myself, though I doubt there are many existences that fit that category. She glared at Kazama. Despite my position as this multiverse's creator, I am far from omnipotent. There are other gods here that require that I keep an eye on lest they do something stupid that will take forever to correct. Leaving, even for a short time, might encourage them to strike and damage the stability here while I am away. And let's not talk about the fact that your simple presence here is increasing all these possibilities with each passing second. So no, I can't help you. I don't mind a good fight, Shadow declared, but, honestly, I think that you should leave as soon as possible. Or at least, only you, Mr. Kazama. Why? Sasori asked. Because the divine essence he contains is an alien element here, she explained. No one knows what sort of anomalies a prolonged leak of it can cause in our multiverse, since it hasn't really happened before. Crypt might have created a good filter, but he'll take too much time to find and get off his ass, especially when he doesn't want to do anything, Ghost finished. The feral Gale frowned. What about me? He asked. I'm not bound by anything. I can help out. You are not at the level needed to fight one Madara yet, let alone 3, his master said. You're strong enough to take out a Biju and maybe a Cage with some luck, but you still need time to grow, mature, and gain more experience. I can probably follow these guys' trails to their multiverse if needed with my powers, but for now they're on their own. He put on a small grin. Well, on second thought, we can mess with the route they take if they travel to our multiverse so that the Madara will take longer to get to them. I'm thinking of rerouting them through a Care Bear world. I see. Kazama trailed off with despair in his voice. I understand. He muttered. I understand too much well. And I have to act on that. The teen stared at his group. Everyone, you will stay in this world. Boss, Naruto began, but her teacher interrupted her. I'm the only one that the Madara are after, he declared. We won't be able to defeat them, that is sure, but here, they won't come after you, and you will be safe. He stared at Shadow. I need to be a bit alone for a while. Could we get some privacy? She nodded, before grabbing her brother's arm in a vice-like grip. Ghost. The man began to sweat profusely, knowing that something painful was going to happen to him soon. Yes. It will take me around 12 minutes to find this guy and put the seal on him, but it will take at least 12 hours of torture for you to atone for insulting my weight and speaking about my relationship with the prick. Please, patiently follow us and wait for your punishment while I finish working. The cursed memory paled, and then ran away as fast as he could. Or rather, tried, since his limbs didn't move. Idiot, Shadow muttered, as her, Shadow, fused with Ghost's. You really think that after spending so much time teaching Shikamaru about the true nature of darkness manipulation, he wouldn't remind me of some of the older tricks I used to do? Fuck. The doomed man shouted frantically. Fuck. Yeah, sucks to wait, but don't worry, I'm going to keep an eye on you. She chirped, before teleporting away with Kazama and the cursed memory before anyone could react. Sasori hated to admit it, but the look on Ghost's face was terrifying, to say the least. The traveler, Kazama. Kazama was staring at a nocturne sky, trying to ignore Ghost screams, as he was receiving a brutal beatdown from Shadow. Strangely, despite the sheer insanity of the two, he couldn't care less about them. They didn't want to help them, so they didn't deserve his attention. He had the power he needed. I have the power of a god, he realized. After years of depending on the Kyuubi, now I am depending on the Shinigami. Is it fate? Divine intervention? Pure luck? But if for each possibility there is a world born of it, can we really talk about luck? Are we really free to decide our future? I have free will, he thought, as a mechanical squeak resonated inside his mind. If the world is guided by fate, and that I am free of it, then does it mean that I am really human? Am I not closer to godhood? When I have the power and the freedom of a god, who is to say that a god am I not? What am I thinking? He wondered, as the sound ended. I am raving, it's only a disillusion. I am beginning to think like Orochimaru, and I know how it turned out for him. I am just human, and it's better off like that. I wouldn't trust myself with the role. With great power comes great responsibility, after all, and I don't even control it that well to begin with. His head jerked to the side, and he saw Naruto standing behind him. "Boss, it took a lot of time to find you," she began. "Can I sit with you?" Of course, he complied, while ignoring Ghost's desperate high-pitched screaming in the background. Kazama didn't know what Shadow was currently doing to him, and actually didn't want to know. Trying to reason with these mad, egoistical gods was a waste of time. Though they have been a bit helpful, Kazama admitted as he looked at the seal on his left palm. It looked like an eye, with the number 12 inside. Naruto also stared at it. "How does it work?" she asked. "It indicates the number of hours before it's safe to teleport," he explained. "When hits 0, then the different energies are balanced," he quoted Shadow, "and then I can teleport without any problem." "It's quite precise," the blonde girl trailed off. "I mean, I can't still believe you have the power of a deity sealed in you." She bit her lip. "Though it's just as incredible as containing a Biju." "I know," he responded. "But with all the craziness that happened, I can't find the energy to be troubled. Nothing is going to surprise me anymore after that." "I wouldn't bet on it," a new voice said. "Believe me, this day was only borderline normal for me. Ever become the leader of 3 revolutions overnight without knowing it? Trust me, it sucks." The duo tilted their head to the side, just in time to see the feral Gale sit down beside them. "Sometimes, I wonder if I did a good thing by accepting that training trip. No Hinata, no Rookie 12, only insane companions and a lot of problems that I have no idea how to approach," he smirked. "Though we are somewhat alike, about that last part." "Yes," Kazama trailed off. "But unlike us, you can actually defend yourself properly against your enemies. Your power, Naruto Uzumaki's power, should have been ours," he thought, as insidious, secret whispers resonated inside his skull. "It should have been our own by right. It should have been mine. I am a bit envious," he declared. "I mean, I am older than you, and yet I'm still weaker than you." His look darkened. "I wasn't strong enough to fight Madara. But with the Shinigami's power, everything will be fine. With it, I will erase them from creation, and everyone that will oppose me shall be crushed under my heel. With it, I will reach true perfection." "Technically, I'm older than you," the feral Gale pointed out. "I was brought back in time right after fighting, and losing, against Madara and virtually half of Akatsuki at once with practically half of Konoha's strongest at my back, meaning that I have 3 to 4 more years or so of experience than you, and you didn't get the same training I did. You can still become a badass if you work at it though. You are me after all." He smirked before putting on a serious face. "But seriously, don't do what I did." He began to shiver. "Being locked in an industrial freezer in only my boxers for over 12 hours at a time and forgetting to tell me what the hell I was supposed to be doing in order to survive, getting thrown off a cliff constantly for over 2 weeks, and then there's the mental conditioning, those guys are evil." "He's right," Naruto exclaimed, ignoring the new addition's temporary mental breakdown. "Keep confidence in yourself, boss. We aren't able to fight the Madara yet, but it doesn't mean we will never be able to do so. We hurt them, matched them. They are not invincible. With hard work and determination, one day we will be able to defeat them." "She's right," he realized, and the whispers vanished. "I don't need the Shinigami's power to defeat them, I just have to develop my own way. I have to keep my hope up. It will take a lot of time," he declared, "but in the end, we will overcome them. With or without the Ubikari's help." "That's the spirit," the feral Gale replied, somehow already back to normal. "If people are too dependent on saviors to rescue their ass, then there will never be any change. The general populace will just be spoiled assholes that way, and tyrants will always continue to show up and rise in power. You have to learn to earn your happy ending instead of waiting for someone to give it to you, or else you will never be able to control your own future. And so, I will shape my own," Kazama concluded. The feral Gale smiled before apparently sensing something and turned his head to the side to look back. "It seems that you are going to have some company, I should leave," he said. "Just remember you have friends here, and listen to what these guys have to say. See you next time." And he vanished in a puff of smoke. Seconds later, the duo received a visit from the rest of the Arashi clan. "Everyone," Kazama wondered. "What are doing here?" "Doing our job as family members," Kakashi said, before putting a hand on the teen's shoulder. "Naruto, I know that you must be quite disappointed by not receiving help and the like, and pretty disturbed by the whole seal deal. I am too. I still don't understand everything, but you can count on me." Who cares if they don't help us? We are more than a simple group. We are family, not by blood, but by unbreakable bond. Whatever obstacles and dangers the world will place on our way, we will overcome it together. I just want to say that this day won't change anything between us, Zabuza growled. Even with all the power in the world, you still suck, and I will do my best to correct that. So I'm still going to continue traveling with you. Now that we know the limits and potential of your abilities, Sasori said, it is obvious that the option of simply outrunning our pursuers is gone. I have a few ideas on how to beat them, or at least how to analyze their abilities, but you, and only you, are able to control your power, and I trust you with it. One day, you will be able to use it safely, and I will be at your side to witness it. Kazama-san, Haku trailed off. I have known despair as much as you do, and I have learned that there is always hope. It doesn't matter if we are alone, as long as we still fight and continue advancing, our future will always be better. She put her hand on his other shoulder. I will do my best to help you gain your future. You gave me a purpose, Kitsune declared. You gave me what I always desired. A family, friends, love. I will stay at your side until the end, and even after if I have to do so. Yeah, same here, Chibaku said. Guys, I know I'm not the most idealistic person around, but I am an eternal optimist. You will find a way to make things turn for the better, and I will help you with it. Yeah, me too, Naruto-ni-san, Naruko whispered, as she hugged him. I'm going to stay at your side until the very end. Everyone, he muttered, tears rolling from his eyes. Thank you very much. The broken man, Kakashi. So you are leaving already? Together, the cursed memory asked. He was covered with bandages, and eyeing Shadow fearfully, as if she was going to give him a repeat performance. Kazama nodded. I think it is time for us to return to our multiverse. We still have some problems to correct, back in our home worlds. Personal problems. I see, too bad, Shadow muttered. Ghost snorted, before glancing at the Arashi clan and scratching the back of his head. Since we can't help you ourselves, I'll give you guys some tips to make things easier for you, somewhat. Shadow raised an eyebrow amused. Oh, be careful brother. Don't want to spoil too much for them. The supposed stronger of the two ignored his sister. You will have to be careful with these two pieces of information cause even though they're going to be fairly constant regardless of what world you're in, managing them in each world will vary due to the personalities of those involved and how much of an asshole they can be. Get on with it. Kazama grunted. You might want to get that temper looked at. Some gods, believe it or not, aren't that patient with backtalk. The immortal deadpanned before shrugging and got on with the topic of interest. Anyways, the first involves getting you guys to master your Bijuu's power. And like that he had all of the family's attention. Get the help of the Jinchuriki of the Hachibi. He has absolute control of his beast, but you have to be careful with negotiating with the man's brother. He's a bit of an overmuscled emotional asshole. Naruko's eyes widened with surprise and hope. He can help us with controlling our Bijuu. Once again it will vary on the mood of the man's brother since he's even stronger than the Jinchuriki, Ghost pointed out, ignoring the looks of disbelief he was getting. I'll keep that in mind. Kazama nodded, probably admitting that the information he just received really was more valuable than he anticipated. And the other piece of information. That, Ghost frowned as he looked at all the versions of Naruto staring at him, before looking at Kakashi, Haku, Zabuza. And then, that, I'm only telling Sasori. Me. Sasori blinked in confusion. Dare I ask why? You're the only one in the group that can be trusted with info like this. It's too dangerous to be widely known among the others yet. The immortal stated, ignoring the irritated looks that many of the others were giving him. This is something that should only be known after the others grow up or stabilize a bit more. I need to grow up. Zabuza growled as the puppet master walked up to the man and they held a private conversation. Unfortunately the immortal had done something that prevented any sound from traveling in their direction, but the look of shock on Sasori's artificial face could not be hidden. Are you certain that this will be consistent throughout the worlds? Sasori asked skeptically. Considering what I know and how things tend to play out in your branch of worlds, you're more likely to come across a world where Naruto is a female and Zabuza is Mizukage than this not happening. The immortal nodded. Just remember, if the man I mentioned is dead, then the other one I told you about almost without a doubt will have won, and regardless of that the latter will always be involved in some way with what you want to know and what you never knew of in the first place. The players may change, but the system will almost always keep several key factors that he will know hands down. Sasori nodded as he began to walk back to the group. I will keep that in mind. You have certainly given me something to think about. I will see how fruitful your lead is in our travels, but what price do you demand for this? Oh, just the answer to a question, he said while grinning innocently. How skilled are you in particular at removing misapplied high-level seals? Pretty good, he responded skeptically. But not as much as I would like. I'm more competent at putting them than removing them. Okay. His smile widened. Thank you very much. What did he say? Kazama asked in an almost demanding tone, his eyes hungry for information as the red-headed puppet master returned. You will find out in time, Sasori mused, his eyes showing that he was thinking of something that interested him greatly. This is something that needs to be addressed, delicately. Zuzushi snorted. Since there is nothing to say anymore, I'm going back to my island. All that love me, follow. And then she passed through a newly opened portal. Not going to be many people, Shadow grumbled. But since I have already lost one day of vacation. She briefly looked back at the Arashi clan. Goodbye everyone, and the next time we meet, you better give me a lot of candy as a payment for my work. You're indebted to me, she shouted before leaving too. Duly noted, Kazama said, while both Ghost and the feral Gale cringed. Why do I have the feeling that we are going to suffer for that? Kakashi thought. Dude, you have no idea of how much screwed you are all, the feral Gale shuddered. It's like signing your own death warrant. Ghost shook his head. Another man condemned to serve Shadow's sweet tooth for all eternity, such a shame. Okay, maybe I just did something stupid. Unfortunately, the cursed memory confirmed. But, since you just offered me a good source of amusement in the future, I'm going to be nice and prevent you from wasting your juice for this first jump. Before anyone could follow his movements, the man took out one of his swords from seemingly nowhere and literally sliced open a nice and clean portal in the middle of the air in front of them. This should bring you back to your multiverse, if my calculations about the dimensional resonance are right, which they always are. He smirked. I'm one of the leading researchers when it comes to natural/metaphysical oscillation and wave pattern physics. So, what kind of world would you like? Would you by chance be interested in one where clothes are not invented? Those are always fun to visit at least once while dimension hopping. I suggest the Sharingan Forest world, Kakashi stated, attracting everyone's gaze. I have enough experience to know that a Sharingan is one of the only ways to counter another. Grabbing a few before teleporting away can be the key to defeat Madara. Too risky, Sasori said. Just think for a second. What if that godly trio, he sneered, managed to reach it? I have a way to test that, the cursed memory declared as the portal changed form and colors a bit. This portal will show us if the way is cleared or not. Thank, Kazama said. But why is it red? The cursed memory raised an eyebrow before turning to look into the portal. Kakashi imitated him, expecting to see a forest. Instead, there was only an inferno. The whole Sharingan forest was burning. The field of flowers had been reduced to a sea of ashes, and the trees were being consumed by flames of different colors. As one of them crawled on the ground toward the portal, its eyes crying black blood and covered with blue fire, even Kakashi shivered. It got worse when something big stomped on the tree's bark, shattering it. The creature looked like a giant mass of black threads having taken a humanoid, bulky form. A red dragon mask served as the monster's face, and was breathing blue fire from the muzzle, quickly incinerated the tree. A few meters away, a similar creature, wearing a purple featureless mask, was butchering armored plants by tearing through their armors with big shuriken made of a black metal. What the fuck? Chibaku wondered. Has someone decided to weed this place? Is it Kakuzu? The feral Gale wondered as he narrowed his eyes. That guy was a pain to kill the last time. A sinister chuckle answered their questions. A new figure appeared beside one of the masked creatures, and Kakashi scowled as he recognized the man's mismatched eyes. I can see you. Dear prey. You. Naruto growled. Me, Susanoo declared. I certainly didn't expect to be able to see you through the veil of space, but, apparently fate has decided to smile to me. Were you looking for the Sharingan? If so, then I'm sorry to disappoint you, he said as he stomped on a dying flower, but you won't find one in this place. We couldn't let these disgusting fakes live after so foolishly trying to eat us, after all. Well, then I assume we have nothing to say to you anymore, Kakashi said. Ghost, you can close the portal. You are going to leave so early. The Uchiha wondered from behind the gate, as he tried to pass his hand through it, only to pull it back severely burned. Ghost smirked. Sorry numbnut. People I don't like can't pass through my portals. I would like to say sorry, but it is so hard to resist the temptation to taunt you instead. How's the sanity thing going for you by the way? Just between you and me, I hear that mass domination and destruction is considered boring and stupid by most megalomaniacal standards. You might want to change your goals if you want to stay with the cool kids. Little vermin, Susanoo muttered, before staring at Kakashi. And I took so much time to prepare this little student-teacher reunion for you, Kakashi-san. Don't you want to see your students again? The man scowled. You are insane. They are dead, madman, he stated, not noticing the feral Gale gazing at him with sadness. As dead as you can be. Really? Said madman asked, amused, as two new figures jumped at his sides. They begged to disagree. Kakashi-sensei. Kakashi felt his blood freeze in his veins. Kakashi-sensei. Naruto and Sasuke repeated, their Sharingan and Rinnegan coldly eyeing the Junin. Why have you abandoned us? After beating Kishin's flunkies, the Arashi clan discovered the hard way that demon lords are not to be underestimated. As the creature proved itself to be too strong to handle, almost killing Naruto and Zabuza, Zuzushi and Ko appeared to save the day. While Ghost and his apprentice defeated Kishin and all the forces he gathered, Shadow cured Naruto from her wounds, and got angered once Naruto and Chibaku explained that their Biju had no idea of who they were. But then, she realized that maybe there was something bigger behind that. While watching the fight between Kishin and Ghost's apprentice, the Arashi saw what a trained Naruto and a Rasenshuriken could do, making Kazama even more bitter and slightly jealous. While Shadow examined Kazama's seal, Ghost explained the Arashi the nature of the multiverse. Each possibility, each what if, creates a variation of one or multiple worlds. Shadow then explained the nature of Kazama's seal. While trying to recover from the damage of Orochimaru, it pumped into the Shinigami's power and absorbed a small part of its divine essence. The seal is using it to protect Kazama when he's either in danger or ask for it, allowing him to teleport through worlds. But this power is dangerous. The more Kazama uses it in quick succession, the more he pumps into the power, with possibly apocalyptic consequences, as it has the potential of tearing reality asunder. Shadow also explains that, in the same way there are multiple variations of one reality, there are many versions of the multiverse around, explaining why godlike omnicidal maniacs haven't succeeded in destroyed everything yet, and why the Arashi's Kyuubi don't know about Zuzushi. They come from another multiverse, created in a different manner. As a result of the recent revelations, Kazama was subtly influenced by Amatsu Mikabashi, which attempted to boost its host's pride and ego by convincing him he was some kind of deity. But failed, Kazama being too humble to become a megalomaniac. Forced to leave, as the Arashi presence in another multiverse could have disastrous consequences like attracting hostile entities or damaging reality, the group however did not leave without having gained a few things. A timer seal for Kazama indicating when the teleportation through worlds could be used safely, knowledge about Killer Bee, information on the conspiracy, given to Sasori only for mysterious reasons, and a free teleportation offered by Ghost. While looking through a portal at the Sharingan forest, in hope of perhaps snatching a few eyes, they discovered that the Madara were already there and torching the place. Noticing the Arashi, Susanoo decided to gloat, and presented his new paths of pain to them, Kakashi's students, Naruto and Sasuke, much to their teacher's horror. Chapter 15. Lightning and Clouds. Passing through the portal, Kazama saw the cursed memory closing it a second later, leaving the Arashi clan to fend for themselves. He had already said he would, but the World Wanderer was still unhappy to have gained nothing but words out of this whole mess. True, he also obtained another seal and pretty important pieces of information, but still. Well, at least Ghost affirmed the world he was sending them to was far away from the one where the Madara had rampaged, and that he would mess a lot with their travel. The cursed memory had declared that they were going to have a month or so of advance, or be left in peace forever, but Kazama wasn't so sure of it. The Madara could follow his trail through the veil of reality just like an Inuzuka would be able to smell his scent from the other side of the land of fire, pretty easily. Fortunately, this advance would help Kakashi deal with Susanoo's latest crime. Eyeing the Junin, Kazama had to admit that the man was coping well for someone whose students had just been reduced to puppets of flesh, in appearance. Anyone with sufficient awareness could see that the revelation had shaken Kakashi to his very foundations. His gaze was devoid of life and determination. He was as pale as a specter, and looked ready to fall unconscious on the ground anytime. As the group walked toward the mountains where was hidden the Valley of Clouds and Lightning, the place where Ghost had guaranteed the container of the Hachibi was training, Kazama approached Kakashi. "Are you alright?" "I am, Naruto-san," he replied. "I'm just a bit tired." It was all a lie, of course. A few stray memories rushed through the blonde's mind, the ones that preceded their crossing of the portal. Kazama watched, as different emotions appeared on Kakashi's face. Shock, pain, horror, and then, anger, undiluted hatred, and the will to kill. Reacting quickly, Kazama restrained the enraged man with his chakra chains, preventing Kakashi from crossing the portal and falling into Susanoo's obvious trap. The World Wanderer struggled a bit to keep the Junin under control. "Kakashi-san, please calm down. You dare," he shouted to Susanoo, a Chidori forming in his left hand. "You dare." "I dare," the Uchiha gloated. "You had left these two bodies right in front of your last breach. It was such a tempting invitation. I couldn't resist." He chuckled, and put his hands on the two boys' shoulders. It's not like they disagreed. "Kakashi-sensei," Sasuke began. I should have known that you were going to betray me, just like you betrayed my cousin Obito." Anger was replaced by surprise, and Kakashi paled deathly. "No, I did. You betrayed me," the possessed Naruto interrupted him. "You abandoned me at my birth, deprived me of the childhood that should have been my own. You betrayed my father's wishes." Tears began to roll from Kakashi's eyes. "I never wanted this. You were afraid," Susanoo stated. "Ever since you were born, you were meant to be a failure, Kakashi. The son of another broken, useless tool, your fate was written in blood and tears." The Uchiha chuckled. "You are nothing more than a fraud, a dead man still walking. You bear the eye of my descendant, without deserving it." It is not true," he trailed off. Obito is dead because of you," Sasuke shouted. "Just as my family is. Why weren't you looking for me? Why didn't you help me? Why didn't you train me well? Why Kakashi-sensei?" the possessed Naruto asked. "Why were you so selfish? Why couldn't you die instead of my father?" The last sentence immobilized Kakashi, making him look like a statue, much to Susanoo's perverse amusement. "Why indeed? Because it is fate's will, my dears. Because fate cursed him to suffer for his own sins, and the ones of his father." "Becca. Okay, once fate talking starts I have to step in to prevent this from getting all annoying and philosophically irritating," Ghost interrupted him, clearly not as disturbed or into the moment as the other dimension travelers. "I've had enough of this crap. Zombie children loved ones is a nice touch, but it's been done before more times than I can count." The immortal shook his head condescendingly at the three confused Madara. "Have some creativity for once." He smirked and pointed at the portal lazily. "As punishment, you three have to go through a small penalty game." The portal shattered upon itself, and the images of the three surprised Rinnegan wielders vanished. The cursed memory sighed and scratched the back of his frustrated. "Simply using the dead as puppets is already pretty bad in terms of karma. Don't glare at me, Sasori-san, you know it's true to a degree, but this was done out of pointless cruelty to play mind games instead of doing it out of necessity. You guys have some really twisted fucks after you," he shook his head. "Waltz would probably have annihilated them a few 100,000 times over for that shit they just pulled, but I managed to pull up a quick alternative punishment." "What happened?" Kakashi muttered, his gaze empty. "What has he done to my students?" "This is one of the Rinnegan's main abilities," Ghost explained somewhat reluctantly, knowing that he should tone down his aloofness for the Scarecrow's sake. Its wielder can control up to 6 other dead bodies at once while slapping a different but specific overpowered ability onto each one, see through them, and use the Rinnegan's powers through them. It's a pretty messed up power, but it's still a rather strong one regardless as far as your worlds are concerned. He crossed his arms. Weird thing was that normally you needed those chakra rods in both yourself and the dead from the Ghetto Meizo in order to make it work. "What kind of powers?" Sasori asked. "We need as much info as we can, so." "Well, the Rinnegan's powers are divided in 6 paths." Kazama ignored the conversation, putting his hand on the Junin's shoulder. "Kakashi-san. It's nothing," he said with a hollow tone. "I'm used to this kind of things. You know, if you ever need to talk a boo." "It's very kind of you," the Junin cut him off, "but I told you it's alright." He sighed. I have had enough of wallowing the past, enough of receiving shit in the face again and again, enough of whining. This last event doesn't make me sad or depressed, Naruto-san. His only visible eye then stared into Kazama's own. It makes me furious. The cat, Yugito. The Valley of Clouds and Lightning was arguably one of the most beautiful places in Kumo, tied with the snowy mountains in the north of the country. There was also the old tomb of the Raikage, and the Turtle Island, where she had tamed the Nibi, like her fellow Jinchuriki. Yugito ni, the 18-year-old vessel of the Nibi, hated to admit it, but she was slightly jealous of Kumo's newest champion. Perhaps it was her cat-like nature, but she envied the boy for managing to dominate his beast faster than she had. This boy was only 12, and yet no one doubted he would be able to control his all-tails mode. He had just finished the ordeals of the Waterfall of Truth, fully dominating his Biju in the process and returning as the newest hero of Kumo. Some were even whispering he would end up replacing Killer Bee as the Hidden Cloud's guardian, a position that Yugito had been coveting since the moment she began to think for herself. But Yugito was anything but a coward. Even if she had to beat the Nine Tails in a duel, she would get the position. Having found her to be compatible with the Nibi right after her second birthday, Kumo's seal masters had immediately sealed the Biju within her, hoping her undeveloped body would adapt better to the infernal cat than an adult. Despite the disastrous results of the previous attempts at creating a stable Jinchuriki for the Nibi, it worked well for her. Somehow, the sealed Biju and the young girl had been able to socialize over their mutual existence as prisoners, and their confrontation at the Turtle Island had been more of playful duel more than anything. Being treated as an unstable, yet useful weapon for the village was not a situation Yugito had enjoyed, but finally earning people's respect had been something of a drug. The day she had seen them cheer her, if not outright kneel before her, had been the best day of her life. Finally, her parents were able to rest in peace, seeing their daughter become the hero they always wanted her to be. But even then, this adoration seemed empty. She was lonely. Beside her fellow Jinchuriki, the Raikage and Bee's Genin team, nobody could really talk to her. To most people, she was some kind of distant, protecting figure, much like Killer Bee. She only enjoyed the company of very few friends. Her mentor's newest team, Samui, Karui and Omoi, with whom she had fought on the front lines. The Raikage, the first adult to recognize her as a human being. His secretary, and her best friend, Mabui. But most of all, the oldest Jinchuriki of Kumo, the man named Killer Bee. And finally, there was the young blonde. And me, Kitten. The Nibi asked, vexed. Have you forgotten me? Not at all, the young lady replied, as she watched the calm water from the rock on which she was sitting on. I like you too. The creature purred. Kitten, I would like to amuse myself a bit, can't we hunt something? Like those big mice from your boss's future grave. You know we can't, Yugito replied. Don't you remember what happened the last time we revealed ourselves in that place? We activated a lot of traps and got chased by the keepers. Overall, it was a funny experience, especially since they failed at harming us, and then when we rubbed that right at their faces. It didn't help my popularity, Yugito thought. We entered a sacred area and more or less trashed it. We got lucky that the Raikage preferred to laugh off our adventure than scolding us. Well, at least we pointed out that the keepers were doing a crappy job at protecting the tomb, the Nibi said. I don't want to try again. You're such a killjoy, Kitten, the creature snorted. Can we at least hunt something? Like one of those savage, disgusting lizards hiding in the corners of this valley. Maybe, Yugito conceded. But only after Killer Bee has finished sleeping under his rock. I don't want to have him interrupt us with his rhymes. If you can call those horrors rhymes, the Nibi grumbled. Sometimes, I really pity Hachibi-senpai. I wonder how has he managed to keep his sanity after spending years listening to his container's antics. Apparently, he can turn itself deaf at will, Yugito stated. Lucky bastard, the Nibi fell silent, and then hissed. Kitten, we have intruders coming from the south. The young woman got up, instantly on her guards. Enemies. How did they manage to pass the Great Wall without being detected and apprehended? I don't know, but their souls are quite. The Nibi stopped, before growling. 3 of them are Jinchuriki. What? Yugito asked, as she stealthily advanced toward the south, intending to obverse the newcomers. Impossible. Suna's vessel has been captured by Darui's division and is imprisoned within the vault. The Sanbi is still roaming the sea, and Iwa is our ally. The only enemy vessels are the ones from Taki and Kiri, and we have a ceasefire with the second. How can there be 3 unknown Jinchuriki here? Unless, perhaps Iwa has decided to betray us, but it doesn't make any sense, no. Why are you asking me this? I don't know more than you, the Nibi replied. However, this strange, I recognize many of the chakra signatures as the Kyubis, all of the Jinchuriki have the same chakra, even if one is completely chaotic and dissociated. This made Yugito pause for a few seconds. I thought only Kinkaku and Ginkaku had ever succeeded at assimilating the beast's chakra. The last person that tried to imitate them by consuming a biju's flesh ended up dying. Apparently, those two have gained a few fanboys, or fangirls. After so many people tried the same thing, it was normal that at least a small percentage of them were successful. However, I wonder what are their intentions. They don't seem to want to hide their presence, and do not radiate with hostility, well, excepted one of them. It is even more insane than Shukaku. Emissaries, perhaps, she wondered, before hiding behind a rock to watch the intruders. She carefully studied them, using the Nibi's vision to pierce their disguises, and her eyes widened in shock and surprise. 2 of them were Naruto. Under their henge, they looked exactly like the young blonde, with the exception of their outfit and soul, which looked a little different from the one of her friend. Another looked like the Jinchuriki's female twin, and also had a disturbingly similar soul to Naruto's own. In their belly, she could see the souls of the Kyubi. There was no mistake about that. She could have recognized the creature's aura from miles away. However, like their Jinchuriki, they looked slightly different from the 9 tails she knew. One of them, specifically, seemed split in 3 parts, even if they were all part of the same soul. How is it possible? I have absolutely no idea. While trying to understand how there could 4 Kyubi in existence, Yugito stared at the rest of the group. One was wearing Kiri's forehead protector, and his soul was tainted, even if there was still some shed of goodness within him under this dark skin. She easily recognized the man as Zabuza Momochi, and his sword. Both had been annihilated when Zabuza had used a suicidal technique to kill the Yondaime Mizukage years ago. She also recognized another ghost, the mysterious Hyoten user that had died fighting Yagura alongside Zabuza, but Yugito had always thought the dead warrior was a man, not a girl. Her golden, calm and female-like soul was a testament of her gender. With them, another ghost was walking. Kakashi Hatake had recently been killed by Commander Darui at the Battle of Shenlong Fort, in front of 100 of soldiers from both sides. The man's soul was a tortured purple light, exuding despair, pain, and especially rage. The last intruder was a redhead, and a total unknown. But his soul was special, and not in a good way. It had literally no moral, no real connection to the world, as if it was a machine, but under it all, there was a huge mass of feelings, repressed by fear. 3 ghosts, 3 Jinchuriki of the Kyubi, and a total unknown, Yugito muttered. How is it possible? I'm as clueless as you are, the Nibi stated. But my vision does not lie. They are all alive, and there are 3 Kyubi. I don't understand, but I think you should sound the alert. I know, Yugito sighed, before biting her finger, drawing blood, and making hand seals before touching the rock with her palm. A small and lean black cat appeared right in front of her, eyeing her with curiosity. Tell the Raikage that strangers have snuck into the valley, that some of them are Jinchuriki of the Kyubi, and that they are followed by Kakashi Hatake, Zabuza Momochi, and another ghost. Be swift and fast, and please assure him that I'm not joking. The cat nodded, and popped out in a puff of smoke. What are you going to do, kitten? The Nibi asked with an amused voice. You know, we do not need any help. Instead of lizards, we can capture, or kill these people. The tone clearly indicated the Biju preferred the second option, but Yugito inwardly shook her head. They are too numerous. We need tea. It's not polite to spy on others, you know. A male voice whispered to her ears, as her eyes widened in surprise. Calm down. I'm not going to kill you, that is, if you don't try to attack us. How did he sneak behind me so quickly? Yugito wondered. Nibi, why didn't you warn me? Ellipsis. Nibi, I can't see his soul. What? She wondered, apparently out loud. The mysterious speaker took it the wrong way. We're not here to fight anyone from your village, Kumo-nin, he declared. We need the help. Quickly, Yugito slammed the back of her head in the man's nose, before hitting his belly with her elbow. Her attacker staggered a bit, and she used the opportunity to grab his armed hand while increasing her strength with chakra, spin, and smash him on the ground, doing her best not to make too much noise. Kneeling, she took a kunai and approached it from his neck. Her attacker was a teen probably of somewhere around her age, with blonde hair, blue eyes, and whiskers. Her eyes widened as she recognized the boy. Naruto-kun. Naruto's older twin frowned. I fear that you mistake me for someone else. No, she stated. The Nibi's eyes allow me to see through any illusions. Your disguise doesn't work on me. Who the hell is he? She wondered as the boy's jaw dropped in obvious surprise. Someone that you should be wary of, the Nibi replied. He is not normal. What the hell are you talking about? Look where there should be his soul. She obeyed, and saw nothing. But she tried to focus, and noticed that the man had in fact a soul, courageous and determined, but simply looking at it was causing her a headache, and blurred images of a star were filling her mind. She had no idea of what was wrong with this guy, but she forced herself not to look at his soul, as she felt something messing with her head. It was the first time something like that had happened. But even more strangely, there was something in his belly. The remnants of a shattered soul, holding back a miniature, purple sun. Her eyes were burning and she was feeling sick so much that she nullified the Nibi's vision, years of training allowing her not to show weakness in front of that strange teen. The Nibi? He asked, oblivious to her hidden confusion, and Yugito cursed herself for having been so careless. Surprise had overwhelmed her, much to her shame. You are a Jinchuriki. Yugito shrugged. Like your three companions, and you too, sort of, she trailed off, making his eyes widen. Nibi, care to explain what happened? He is the host of a powerful entity, much like you, the Nibi responded. But it is far more alien and godlike than anything I have ever seen, and it has hidden its host's presence from us by subtly messing with our minds. Do not look at his soul again, or you might be enthralled by whatever is sealed in it, or worse, transformed into a raving shell of a woman. Who are you? Yugito asked. You can call me Kazama Arashi, he replied, surprisingly calm. And it is not polite to spy on people, miss. Yugito ni, she said reluctantly. He already knew she was the Nibi's container, so why bothering trying to hide her identity? Though it was strange for a ninja not to know her name, she was a war hero, after all. You asked for it by infiltrating this sacred ground. I still wonder how did you manage to get past the wall? The wall. He was obviously faking misunderstanding. What wall? Oh, you know, the wall protecting Kumo from all invaders, overseen by the best of the best and impossible to break through, she deadpanned. He's just the size of a mountain and covered with cannons. The boy grinned sheepishly. Sorry, no idea of what you're talking about, he said with false sincerity, probably. Nibi. I can't see if he lies or not, the Biju replied. I told you, I can't see his soul. Can't or don't want. Both. Inwardly cursing, Yugito decided to go on with the man's sort of game. Well, if you didn't get past the wall, I assume you simply used the Yondaimi's technique to teleport yourself here. Am I wrong? It wasn't the Yondaimi's technique, the blonde conceded. But we did teleport in this place. Yugito snorted. And I assume you somehow found a way to negate the effects of all of the wall seals, explicitly made to counter such a mean of transportation. Well, would you believe me if I told you we are using a god's power? He asked. I would be skeptical, but since the Yondaime already succeeded, she replied, while thinking fast about the revelation. It might be a trick. Screw it, it's probably a trick. Damn, what is the use of a lie detector if it doesn't work on some people? It is cool, the Nibi shot back, vexed. That, and with it you always win at ninja poker. Anyway, Yugito continued. What do you people want? We need to see the container of the 8 tails, he said. She snorted. To do what? Sing with him. No, he replied. We need his help. His help, she repeated, quite taken aback. She certainly didn't expect such an answer, but of course, he might be lying. Really, she had become too dependent on the Nibi's vision. Hey, it's not my fault if it doesn't work well on that one guy. I suppose you need his help to tame your 3 Kyuubi, and whatever kind of creature is inside of you. The lady guessed. Yep, the teen grinned. But to be honest, I doubt he will be able to help me. Heck, I doubt anyone can. If he can help my brothers and sister, however, he locked eyes with her. Being a Jinchuriki from Kumo, I assume you know how painful is it not to be able to control your beast's power and have an antagonistic relationship with it. Well, if that crazy Kyuubi's state of mind is of any indication, I can understand why they need a teacher, the Nibi said. This creep is scaring me, it has 3 personalities, for crying out loud. I do understand, she replied. But do you really think Kumo is going to help you with it? Well, it costs nothing to ask politely, he said. Or maybe we can have a deal. She snorted. I don't see how a weakling like you could have anything that could interest the Raikage. The teen grinned. I wouldn't be so sure if I was you, I have plenty of resources. And then, he popped up in a cloud of smoke. Yugito only had the time to widen her eyes as she felt powerful chains winding around her limbs, seizing her and restraining her in less than a minute. She tried to struggle, but she only managed to make the process faster. Unable to move, she saw herself floating above the ground, lifted by blue chains of chakra, before staring at the teen, who was standing a bit far away. And never call me a weakling ever again. Shadow clone, she realized, hissing in shame and defeat. This technique splits the soul of the user, meaning I can't distinguish a clone from the real deal, the Nibi whispered. You got owned, kitten. Want to go 2 tails on his ass. Focusing, Yugito felt the Nibi's chakra invading her system, and the chains tightening, making her scoff. I'm not going to allow you to use your powers, the teen declared. Tell your Biju not to interfere or I will snap your neck. Sorry, kitten, the creature whispered while it reluctantly obeyed, but I can't help you, for now. However, the second we have an opening. I know, she said, trying to stay calm while being enraged. The double of Naruto then jumped next to his friends, the chains carrying Yugito with him. The Jinchuriki realized the whole group had been silently observing the scene from afar, as if it had been planned. Which it was, as the teenager's comments confirmed it. Was it really necessary? Kazama asked to the redhead. Of course it was, the redhead replied. A demonstration of strength is always needed. The weak are never respected, and we must show that just because we're asking for help, we aren't beggars. That, and we needed her to alert the Raikage. When will they arrive? The Hyoten user asked, not sounding like a ghost at all. Oh, they are already there, the redhead nonchalantly said, as he stared at the north. The Raikage had come, and he was not alone. The tall and muscled man was followed by 20 Anbu, C, Darui, Mabui, Killer Bee, and Naruto. The real one of course, who was glaring at them with fury in his eyes. Yugito quickly understood he couldn't see through these people's henge. He looks a bit pissed, Zabuza deadpanned. Not as much as this wrestler, the Naruto girl, pointed out, as she stared at the Raikage. Release Yugito. The man shouted, his soldiers straightening at his sides. Now. Of course, Kazama said, as the chains vanished, leaving Yugito to land on her legs. No need to be angry. I'm going to kill you all. The man roared, taking away his shirt and preparing himself to attack. He stopped, just at the moment when he noticed Kakashi Hatake. His eyes almost jumped out of their socket, and he wasn't alone. Darui had dropped his jaw, the Anbu had stopped moving, Mabui and Naruto had lifted their eyebrows, and A specter, that's so much better. He rhymed. I thought it was a band of bastards, but they're just ghosts of retards. Then, a long silence. That was uncool, Darui muttered. Yugito didn't know if he was talking about the rhymes or the situation, however. The rhymes, the Nibi stated. The rhymes, she confirmed. What was that? One of the false Naruto asked. Dark skin check, Kazama began. Totally strange, check. Absolutely bad rhymes check. He's the Hachibi's Jinchuriki. Good, and the Raikage's brother, the redhead continued, before scoffing. Everyone, I'm sure you have realized that, while our meeting with your friend didn't go as good as it could have, we mean no harm to you. Who are you? I asked. How can these dead men still be alive? Kazama smiled. Well, it's complicated. Can we speak in a more calm place? Consider us as your prisoners. Put chains on us or whatever you need, but we won't try escaping. The Raikage frowned, but Naruto then straightened, as he entered the famous chakra mode, becoming clad in a golden energy. They tell the truth, he said. I sense no evil intention within them. He seemed to stiffen when he stared at Kazama, but then his gaze became empty right before returning to normal. They're good guys, if not particularly nice. Snorted. Restrain them, and keep your guards up, he ordered his men, before staring at the newcomers. I'm willing to give you people a chance to explain yourself, since Naruto trusts you, but the second you try something, you're dead. The puppet master, Sasori. The rakeage had been incredibly lenient, in Sasori's opinion. They hadn't been chained, no seals had been put on them, and they even had been allowed inside the man's office, only after being stripped of their weapons, objects, and being checked on just to see if they weren't wearing destructive seals. The face of the rakeage's assistant, when she had discovered Sasori's nature, had been priceless. Of course, they hadn't seen Sasori's hidden assets, and the objects sealed inside of his puppet body, like the scrolls from Uzushiogakure and most of his puppets. If things were to get ugly, the puppeteer could always give everyone secret weapons, and easily recuperate the confiscated objects. He had expected an inspection more extreme, after antagonizing one of Kumo's Jinchuriki. Of course, since this Jinchuriki was in the same room as them, glaring at Kazama, with her two fellow vessels, the rakeage himself, the man's two bodyguards, secretary and probable third guard, while the Anbu was waiting on the other side of the office's closed doors, ready to attack anytime, Sasori knew that Kumo was taking them very seriously. Somehow, it reminded him of his last meeting with the Sandaime Hokage, and Sasori intended to lead the negotiations his way this time as well. And he had already begun to, by explaining the situation and ordering Kazama and his counterparts to drop their henge, planting the seeds of confusion and doubt in his opponents' hearts. Of course, he hadn't revealed everything. No experienced political players revealed all of their aces since the beginning. The puppeteer had not lied, but simply omitted some information, like the real nature of Kazama's seal, its limits, most of their abilities, their knowledge, giving a slight portion of truth to get people to believe you, while keeping most of it for later use, was the best strategy possible. It was way better than lying, unless your truth was simply too hard to conceal otherwise. Sasori's expert eyes stared at the different protagonists on the scene, watching their face and their emotions. And, he didn't forget, all the weapons they were wearing, just in case he had to take one hostage or fight his way out. He also reviewed the info he had gathered on them, just in case. Yes, he could already see a few differences between his and this world, like Yugito Ni's age or Naruto's allegiance, but he doubted they would have different techniques, or at least, he hoped so. The office itself was quite big and looked a lot like the Hokage's. You could look at the whole village through a large window, and probably escape by breaking through it. There were some hidden seals that could be used to dampen chakra around, or increase the potency of lightning techniques, hence giving the rakeage, and Kakashi, a decisive advantage should there be a battle. The rakeage, was a bulky man, with an impressive build. He was dark-skinned, had white hair, beard and mustache, along with black eyes and a stern face. He was wearing Akage's white robes, black pants and sandals. Obviously a taijutsu and lightning jutsu expert. His bodyguards were Junin-level ninjas, known as Darui and C, apparently the same as the ones of Sasori's universe, if the way they were acting as was of any indication. The first was the rakeage's right hand, if the familiar way he was addressing his superior was of any indication. A laid-back dark-skinned man with relaxed black eyes, shaggy white hair and a sleeveless uniform, this man was probably Kumo's version of Kakashi, a powerful ninja not taking life seriously, or rather, appearing not to take it seriously. The tattoos on his arms, indicating his mastery of the Black Lightning and the Storm Release, were a proof of that. The other bodyguard was probably relatively new Junin, with his serious expression and tense muscles. Black eyes, blonde hair, a uniform with multiple pockets, probably a medic nin or a support type. The last, non-Jinchuriki shinobi was the rakeage's secretary, a woman called Mabui. A dark-skinned woman with platinum hair pulled back in a bun and green eyes, she was wearing a green formal attire that was revealing most of her physical assets. Sasori wasn't interested in women, his puppet body freed of the dangers of hormones, but he knew that most men viewed the woman as very pretty. Of course, she was probably aware of it. Like all good kunoichi and able to use her charms for infiltration and assassinations, she could prove herself to be dangerous. But she wasn't even half as dangerous as Yugito Ni was. A young woman with long blonde hair bound by a bandage, black eyes, and wearing a black and purple shinobi attire, this Yugito was far younger than the one from Sasori's world, and probably only slightly older than Kazama, but if she could control the Nibi, she was not to be underestimated. Kazama had the advantage of surprise the first time, but the kunoichi would know what to expect the next. The eldest Jinchuriki was also slightly disturbing him. The strange man was like a younger, less muscular copy of his brother, with a less serious face and a goatee instead of a mustache and beard. He was wearing black sunglasses, an attire composed of a white flak jacket, ropes and forehead protector, and black pants. He was also carrying no less than 7 blades on his back, and the seal on his right arm showed to everyone his state as the Hachibi's vessel, and his incredible competence. Most Jinchuriki died young, and rarely lived more than 20 years, their beast either consuming them or their village killing them. And finally, there was the new Naruto. He was apparently more or less of Chibaku's age, and was wearing a Kumo's flak jacket colored in orange, white pants, and the Cloud's forehead protector. He was also carrying 2 blades, showing that he had some proficiency in swordsmanship. Dual wielding was extremely hard, and his previously seen, alternate form, was the proof that he had a good, if not absolute, control over his beast. So, yeah, they were screwed if the Raikage ever decided to capture or kill them. But Sasori had been in worse situations before, and would adapt himself. That was the secret of survival. After the Kumo Nin recovered from their shock and surprise, the Raikage ordered both his troops to confirm the puppeteer's revelations. Both the Kumo Naruto and Yugito confirmed sensing the Kyuubi inside of Chibaku. Naruko and Kitsune, Mabui checked their seals and declared they were not fake. Darui repeated he did kill Kakashi Hatake himself, and that there was no way he could have survived, and B, was making rhymes. My disciple has a swordsman twin. He shouted happily. Which one's is the better nin? Kitsune has only begun training, Sasori replied. Better make them underestimate him. He is not yet fit to beat this youngling. Of course, everyone stared at him in shock, excepted Killer Bee, who grinned happily. Oh, you are speaking in the secret language of the bees. Here is another brother of the Brotherhood of the Awesome Poetries. I'm not so much of a master of word twisting, Sasori responded. More like of a lover of all things interesting, what? He asked to the blank crowd. I like art, all arts. It's a nightmare, Yugito grumbled. It's a cool dream, the Kumo Naruto smiled. Today, I can see the sun's beam. Be serious, damn it. Or roared, breaking his desk by punching it, making everyone fell silent. It is a very important matter. Raikage-sama, your desk, Mabui muttered. It is the 3rd this week. Well, then I will buy a 4th one, he shot back, before staring at the Arashi clan. What the hell do you want from us? Our help when your pursuers track you down? Down. Possibly, if you are willing to give it, Sasori continued, shutting down Kazama's inevitable refusal. The blonde had given the redhead carte blanche for the negotiations, trusting his expertise, and showing dissensions was already decreasing their chances of gaining something out of them. They needed to appear as united as possible. But, preferably, we would like to exchange knowledge. What kind of knowledge? The Raikage asked skeptically.